guys ready? No? All right.
I want to make sure you get all the letters.
All the letters?
Yes, the letters on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
Letter.
Multiple letters, many letters.
Many letters? Okay. All right. Well, while you get your letters, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 9th meeting of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners. Will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone had a good summer. I'm still mourning the fact that it's over, but and I hope everyone's had a good start back to school. So I will make notice that we met in executive session just prior to this meeting, everyone with the exception of Commissioner Abel, who's absent this evening, and we discussed matters of personnel and legal issues. So the first thing up is a presentation to the Radnor Township Police Department by our own representative, Jennifer O'Mara from the 165th. So welcome, please come up. So nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So
Do you wanna-
I guess
No, you want to turn it, you can
Turn
pull.
it? Okay.
Yeah, pull the microphone towards you. Or do you want this one? Do you want the handheld?
Sure.
There you go. You can like be a rock star.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for entertaining me at the start of what will be a busy commissioners meeting. I will try to be brief. So I am here tonight to present the Radnor Police Department with a grant for $40,000 for the purchase of body cameras. And I was really excited to support this grant because when I first got elected, one of the first people that came to visit me in my very first Radnor mobile office hours was Chief Flanagan. And he made sure that I knew his cell phone number, that I knew how to reach him, and in case I needed anything or there was ever an emergency in Radnor, that we could partner together. And I really appreciated that immediate effort to build a bridge with me. I then got a request to support a grant for body cameras from the Radnor Police Department, and their focus is, I think, really evident for anyone who interacts with Radnor Police. They want to keep everyone in Radnor safe, and they want to build a very united community. And through their work at the Unity in the Community event, their amazing response to some really big tragedies that we've had in Radnor, their professionalism when we've had scares at Villanova University. I mean, I could go on and on about why I'm so proud to present this check to our police department. So thank you so much for everything that you do, not only for me, but for everyone in Radnor. Thank you. And I think that, you know, body cameras is just a way for us to continue to build trust within our community and the police department. And in a day and time where our police officers don't always get the credit that they deserve, I think this is a really great way for the state to show their support and for us to know that we have a great department for us to have faith in. So thank you all very much, and thank you for having us this evening.
Certainly do, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Representative O'Mara, and we will be voting later on this evening on the body cameras. Okay, we will move on to consent agenda. Does anyone have, any of the commissioners have anything they'd like to pull from the consent agenda?
Yes, I have several,
Oh,
Commissioner.
please.
I would ask to remove letters C, E, F, H, I, K, Q, and R.
Okay, C, E, F, I, K, H, I, K, and R.
Q,
Q
I'll take an N
and R.
for $3,000.
Let me just repeat this back. C, E, F, H, I, Q, and R.
C, E, F, H-I-K-Q-R.
Sorry, I forgot the K. Okay, does the staff have anything they'd like to remove from the consent agenda this evening? No? Does the public have anything they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? All right, may I get a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items C, E, F, H, I, K, Q, and R?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Commissioner Nagel, did you? I'm sorry. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Booker, item C.
I've asked to have it removed. Motion to approve, support our campaign to reduce litter and waste Penn Environment. This is a single-use plastic letter, or I'm not sure what exactly it is or who put it in here or why it's here.
I put it in here because I was asked by Penn Environment to sign it, and I am not comfortable signing anything without the full board reviewing and taking a look at it.
Well, that's great, but if you weren't comfortable, why not put it into as a presentation item for the whole board instead of consent agenda? So this, if you wanted to bring it for the board, it's best to put it in as a regular item so we discuss it, not as in a consent agenda. Consent agenda is for regular or recurring items that are administrative in nature that do not require a separate approval by the board, and they can be approved en masse. This is a resolution, this is a policy item, and policy items should be reviewed so the public, as well as the commissioners, can know everyone's position on these matters.
Okay,
This
so
this
you
issue
pulled it,
is
so
for
please
plastic,
share.
single-use plastics. There is a problem in the oceans of single-use plastics, mainly coming from India and Africa. Radnor is not contributing massively to the problem, and Radnor sends almost all of its municipal waste to the incinerator. So this issue is not an issue that's for Radnor, and really shouldn't be taking the time of this board where we have issues that actually affect the local people. This is a national issue and should stay on that.
So I 100% disagree with you, Commissioner Booker. Last time I looked, Radnor was part of the national community, I guess, or what you'd like to describe it as. So I believe that we are just as responsible and should demonstrate responsibility as much as any other community in the, across the nation. So that
you're
is why I
calling
put
the
it in
people
here.
of Radnor irresponsible?
I am not.
I wouldn't do that personally. If I was commissioner, I would never call the constituents irresponsible, but if you want to do that, go ahead.
Well, I guess if you'd like to put words in my mouth, sure, feel free. Feel free
You
to
said
do
it.
so.
You said it,
I don't
irresponsible.
think I did. I said responsible. We are members of a responsible community. So, this came across, and to me, it seemed reasonable for us to support something that it's around legislation, a package of legislation which works to address the issues created by our throwaway society. I don't think there's anyone that will disagree. We do have a throwaway society, and I felt that it was, important, and I brought it forward for the entire board to consider. I will be supporting it. If you choose not to, that's fine, and that is why it was on the agenda, and you pulled
I
it.
disagree that we have a throwaway society. I disagree that the community is irresponsible.
Okay.
And I know that we have a good recycling program, and we have take every step to make sure that we minimize trash and pollution to the community and to the Commonwealth and to the earth. So this is just completely out of place, and Radnor is not irresponsible.
Okay, so I did not say that, but if you would like to continue to say that, certainly feel free to do so. Do any of the other commissioners have anything to say on this issue, on the letter?
It just seems to me that it's just a campaign. No one has to, you don't have to follow through with it. It's just just an education process. You don't have to do it, Rich.
I don't know why we would have a resolution if we don't plan to follow through with it, so I don't believe in making statement that you're not going to follow through with, you don't really believe.
Point of order. Is this the Rich Booker show, or let's call the vote, let's get public comment.
The Rich Booker show is on Radnor Studio
Okay.
21.
Okay, gentlemen, please. All right. So it's not a resolution, it is a letter. It's a letter of support that I'm suggesting that the township, or that the township sign on to. I did not want to do that.
Why don't you
without-
read it so that people can know what you're asking?
Well, it is in the packet, but certainly I am glad to read it if people would like it. So it is specifically, this package of bills works to address litter issues such as cigarette butts and single-use plastics like straw, styrofoam, food containers, and plastic bags. The largest part of our waste stream, food waste and organic waste, which I think we talked about around composting last time. Am I right? Yes, we did. I know you do. The fastest growing parts of our waste stream, electronic waste, which we have a program here in our township to address electronic waste, so we are already doing a lot of these things. And systems to improve, we actually have something on our agenda to approve an electronic, what is it? An electronic and shredding event. So electronics and shredding event. So we're already doing some of these things. And systems to improve and expand our recycling programs versus harmful landfilling and incineration, which we have been discussing already. Reducing single-use plastics such as plastic grocery bags, straws, single-use plastic water bottles, and polystyrene takeout food containers, which, styrene, thank you, which we have also been discussing. We sent something to our Environmental Advisory Committee for them to work on something, and we actually just sent it back to them at our last meeting.
Again,
So
that's-
we are
we are working on
these.
these things, so why would we join this campaign? I don't think this is
It's not a
proper for
campaign.
us.
It's just a letter of support, saying that we are doing these things and we support others doing the same thing. Should I read the entire letter? It's really long. Is there anyone here who needs me to read the entire letter? Okay. So, is there any other comments on this by the commissioners? Is there any comments from the staff? Is there any public comment on this? Sarah?
Sarah Pilling from Garrett Avenue, that you think, Mr. Booker, that we are a microcosm who does not do any of this. You are sincerely mistaken. This is a vote of support for Penn Environment, who's working more than in Southeast Pennsylvania, is working across the state. Indeed, Madam President, the EAC is addressing it. They have written an ordinance which they're continuing to look at to ban single-use plastics in Radnor Township. And this is nothing more than a way to say to Penn Environment, you're working hard, we support you. And I think we should sign this letter as a group.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening, Leslie.
Hi. Coming from a family that's done a lot for the environment, and living down at the shore for the last 2 summers a lot of times, and having Avalon go through banning plastic straws, it's a mistake. I'm sorry, you guys. They don't work. The paper straws don't work. I am against that when I'm still going to get the top of my coffee in plastic, and we're still going to have Slurpees with plastic cups. So if we could exit out the products that do and don't work, one product I was able to find that did work is I have like 10 of those metal straws, but sometimes you forget to bring them with you. And also the bamboo straws work. But the paper straws, it's a failed product, and so I'm not going to support that. And I don't think your Radnor residents, everybody, I go into La Colombe and they're like, they hide the plastic straws now, but everybody knows that. Experienced coffee drinkers, okay? So I'm really against not seeing the letter. Not that I wouldn't support it, because I probably would, but the straw thing's a hot button issue with your constituents, and we want our plastic straws. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Is there anyone else who has any comments on this evening? All right, I do, Jennifer, thank you for reminding me. I do not have a motion. Can I get a motion to approve this letter, please?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes 5-1 with Commissioner Abel absent. Commissioner Booker, item number E, or letter E.
This is Resolution 2019-77, further amending the Township organizational chart. I'll turn it over to staff to explain.
Madam President, if you don't mind, it might be more efficient to address little e and little f together as they are related legislation.
That's fine.
And the legislation itself goes into quite a bit of detail on the moving parts, as does the legislative summary, which goes into even more detail about what's going on. So at a very high-level summary, the board adopted an organizational chart late 2018, which included a new position, public information officer position. That position, during the interview process, it was determined that it would be better served reporting directly to the township manager. So what Resolution 2019-77, part of what it does is it takes the Public Information Office and moves it from being a function of finance over to the administration department. One of the other moving pieces is the reallocation of another full-time employee, originally slated to go to Public Works, is now moved to police. So those are the changes associated with the reorg and the public information officer. The other piece of the reorg is a change or a promotion in the police department as it relates to an administrative assistant. That position change would be to an executive assistant to the police superintendent. So that is recognized in the reorg. And then Resolution 2019-78, where the township adopts a wage and salary schedule, we're recognizing or establishing the public information officer wage, being that it's a new position, and when the wage and salary schedule was originally adopted last December, we did not have a person in that position and a set salary. We do now, so we are asking the board to adopt that. The other change in the wage and salary schedule is that the executive assistant in the police department, that promotion, recognizing the fact that it is a promotion and additional responsibilities, there is a proposed wage adjustment there as well. So those are all the moving pieces of those two pieces of legislation.
Great, thank you, Mr. White. May I get a motion to approve? I will do items E and F together. May I get a motion, please?
Wait, it's item E and F. Did you say C?
I said E and F.
So moved.
All right, Commissioner discussion. Commissioner Booker.
Yeah, Bill, so can you explain a little more about the public information officer and who was originally established to be the direct report for that person, and why it's changed so that it's being reporting up to Bob as a township manager?
Yeah, under the original proposal from last fall, the Public Information Office and the corresponding work that's done in this room for taping these meetings and other township-related communications had previously been under the Finance Department. As we went through the interview process and we had the various candidates come through, during those discussions, it was obvious that the public information employee and associated responsibilities would work much more efficiently reporting directly to the township manager. So that change was
In
made.
what ways were there efficiencies gained?
In a lot of ways, the township manager's message or getting information out on critical issues, it eliminates, in this case, myself, from being in the middle of information getting out to the public.
So it makes it more efficient for you.
Makes it more efficient for everyone.
My understanding of the public information officer was for the township, for the board, for finance. This person is our public relations person. This person sends out all township propaganda. So wouldn't it be better to have more people crafting the message than just to have one person, the township manager.
No, don't confuse who the person is reporting to with who is creating the message.
But you can't
It's an
disassociate
organizational
those.
chart.
You can't disassociate those, though, right?
Maybe if I can, Madam President, I just want to make it clear, it's not propaganda that's put out. That's an erroneous error that's made. Giving the public information in regards to flooding towards emergencies is not propaganda, but I guess if you don't like the position, you throw a lot of bad information and lies out there, so.
I don't-
Madam President, I believe I have the floor. So the person.
Wait, were you recognized? Wait, this is board, wait,
I have the
Gentlemen,
wait, point of order.
gentlemen.
This is board discussion.
Gentlemen,
Board
gentlemen.
discussion.
Gentlemen.
Board discussion.
Point of order.
Gentlemen,
Board discussion.
enough, enough.
Board discussion.
So, Commissioner
believe-
Booker, you asked a question of staff, and staff is responding.
I did not ask a question of
Commissioner,
Bob in this
Mr.
case.
Zink-
Bob's
Commissioner Booker,
chirping up.
please. Mr. Zinkowski,
Yes,
if
as-
you could
as the-
please
sure.
limit your response to.
Bob, I
chat
believe
about-
her
As the
reporting
chief
directly to
Commissioner
you
Booker.
is
executive
problematic.
officer of the
Booker,
township,
enough.
there is information that needs to be disseminated to the public in emergencies in any situation, in any event, and I know you've not been aware of that. The police department.
What does that mean? I'm
communicates
I'm
with me,
aware of, I'm aware of
the,
everything,
Public
Bob.
Works Director,
Bob,
the
and
engineer,
this is
a
not
lot of
just,
those
this
information.
position is just not just for public emergencies.
And Mr.
This is the
Mr.
public
Zinkowski.
information.
talking
and
over.
All right,
it- and
first of
there's-
all,
it
gentlemen,
does-
gentlemen, Rich, enough. Rich, please.
Have you seen all of the information that comes from our
Rich.
public information officer? It's many, many different things. It's not just
Rich.
emergency information.
Rich, we are not debating the public information officer position.
My question was, why is it better to have Bob be the sole person that the woman reports to, rather than a group that craft the message for the township? And there's no answer to that.
Bob.
There is
so-
an answer to that.
There is an answer.
The issue is, as the chief executive officer of the township, there is a lot of coordination that goes on with department heads, with staff, with the community, with organizations that help craft that message. You need one point of contact. A lot of those times, maybe it's 2 in the morning, maybe it's 3 in the morning, maybe it's staying knee-deep in the middle of water. Staff is doing what their responsibilities are. My responsibility is to that person to communicate what information is accurate and correct to get out to the public and not respond. That
What
is
you
the way
think is
this
accurate and
structure-
correct
that's
is
where-
not always
that
what we
is-
think is
Okay.
accurate and
That is where
correct.
that's at, so.
So the public information
So-
officer was, the board appointed, we decided, we are accountable to the people, we authorized it, we authorize the payment. This is a board person.
It is not a board person. You'd be
This
violating the
is-
charter
all right,
as you have done
enough,
in the past.
enough.
So the.
Gentlemen,
You violated the
Rich.
charter in the past.
No.
You violated
how is
your
that, sir?
responsibility
How
many
is that,
times.
sir?
enough, Rich,
I
enough.
call him out on that. That's.
It's gentlemen.
I call you out on
You
that.
are out.
I
You
call
have
you out on
violated the
that.
charter.
Can I get a
You have
recess?
interfered with
You-
staff.
you-
You
Can I
have
get a motion
interfered
for
with
recess?
that, and you've
You've
done
illegally
nothing.
provided
You've done nothing.
documents.
Stop it, both of you.
I'll move.
Enough. Enough.
Can we
It's
take-
enough.
Can we take a 5-minute?
Yeah, may I get a motion
recess?
for recess, please?
And,
Second.
and can
We'll
I
recess
just?
for 5
Can I
minutes.
just comment on the public information person? You know, that person can take information from anybody. The manager, Mr. Booker, Mr. Farhi, information can come through the manager from the commissioners to go out. So that's the way that person typically is going to work. If the commissioners want the manager, want to put something out, some kind of information, it's got to come through the manager to the public information. I mean, it's not being blocked. If any of you have something that you want to put out, it goes through the manager. That's the way the charter works. That's the way it should work. And I'm looking forward to the 5-minute recess.
We'll be back in 5 minutes.
I don't want a 5-minute recess. Why were we having a recess?
Minute recess, please. Thank you. Ian, thank you. All right, we're going to get started again. Thank you all for indulging the 5-minute recess. So, Commissioner Booker, I feel like you've said your...
My concern is that we have, Bob has many direct reports. The public information officer needs to get input from many different people. My preference would be to leave it, the reporting structure, to the finance director as it was. Bob has dozens of reports already. I'm concerned solely for Bob and the extra work that he puts in with another person to be in charge of and to write an evaluation for.
Okay,
So
great.
I'm thinking of his best interest and leaving it as it was.
All right, thank you. That's very considerate of you. All right, is there...
Madam President, if I may, I'd like to apologize to Commissioner Booker for my outburst into the board and the public.
All right, thank you.
Accepted.
Mr. Zinkowski for that. Are there any other commissioners that have any comments? And this is on items C and F together. Does anyone have any comments?
Well, yeah, F also goes to
E
the
and F,
increase in pay for the other, for the secretary, for the
Do you have a comment on that?
It's E and F.
E and F.
Yeah, I'm sorry, E and F.
What did she say?
I said C.
C, I
did
think you
say
said C the first time, too.
The first time I didn't, the second time I did.
So again, there's a pay increase with additional reporting. One of the things that I'm concerned about is that we, in reporting crime statistics, et cetera, that would be done by a police officer who knows crimes, classifications, reporting. Why wouldn't that be more appropriate than a layperson, for instance, who might not know the difference between a robbery and a burglary?
Madam President, if I may, I think it's good that we have civilians being able to do this data entry reporting than using a full-time police officer where they can be better utilized. We don't have the luxury, as one of our neighboring communities, to have a lot of administrative police officers that here, Chris does a nice job of keeping a lean department and utilizing civilians to do data input and upload the information is a better use and efficiency of our police personnel.
But again, my concern is there a knowledge element? Police officers are trained. They know crimes, they know classifications, they know elements of crime. They are better able to report statistics. And my concern is that we are going to lose that knowledge and accuracy if we have a layperson filling out these reports.
I assume
Okay,
this person is reporting what has actually been charged, not making determinations on the fly about what should have been charged? Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. And to Commissioner Booker's report, one of the duties here is to work with all of the internal department heads within the police department to obtain information. Most of the time is spent with detectives and the classifications. So we're extremely concerned about making sure we have accurate information. And this administrative position coordinates between all the different command staff within the police department, the detectives, our IT specialist, Steve G. and Christoforo, and helps create that chief's report by blending all that information together.
So
Okay,
is there
Commissioner
particular
Booker.
knowledge that we are, so this is a promotion, and what's the pay increase percentage on this? And is it a particular knowledge or test or anything that allowed us to make this adjustment and increase in pay and in responsibility?
So the increase in pay is about $6.20 per hour on a...
What's the percentage on that?
The percentage from an hourly rate of $28.41 to $34.61. So it's about a 22% increase. So, yeah, and that's answering the question directly.
But, so, was there a particular test or additional schooling or training, something that would validate a 22% pay increase?
One of the things, and I'll let Chris add to this, is we used to have 5 administrative assistants in the police department. We have now taken that down to 2, which they've taken the additional responsibilities on. taken these on have actually even performed very well over the years. So again, now, not only those additional responsibilities, will take on even further responsibilities for this position.
I appreciate that, Bob, and I'm mindful that last year we also hired 5 new police officers at a cost of $1 million a year. And we did that even though Villanova has hired their own police force, so.
All right, Commissioner Booker, I would like to give
So
any of the other
I'm mindful of
commissioners-
how
Commissioner
much,
Booker.
I'm mindful of how much we're
Commissioner Booker.
spending in this, in our township services, that we get value for money for our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Booker. Is there any other, I'd like to give the, any other commissioners an opportunity to speak if they would so desire on this, on the motion for items, to approve items E and F. Is there anyone else that has anything they'd like to add? Is there anything else that the staff would like to add? Is there anything else the public? Any comment from the public? All right, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of approving items E and F, please indicate by saying aye.
E and F.
E and F, I said E and F. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-1. Commissioner Booker, item H.
Item H, Resolution 2019-68, authorizing township improvements to basements, storage, and improved office systems, Inc., for $109,835. Could we get some explanation of the project for $109,000? It's a sizable project.
It was in the back.
Agreed, it is a sizable project. The board met several times throughout 2019 as we were discussing the projects associated with the recent borrowing, where the board authorized $7.3 million in projects. Included in that list of projects and what was discussed was an allocation of $200,000 to various improvements to this building, one of which was cleaning up and improving the record storage systems in the township's basement. If, Ian, can you switch it over to my computer real quick and put that up on the screens? What I don't have, and I apologize, I wish I did, is some sort of photograph of what it looks like now. But basically what you have now are aisles of 20 to 30-year-old filing cabinets with cardboard boxes stacked on top of them. In a lot of cases, oversized plans that are 8 feet in the air, hovering over the aisle. In the last 2 years, we've had 3 near misses in the basement where boxes and cabinets have either fallen or began to fall on someone who was trying to get information out of them. So the recommendation came from the Township Safety Committee, which is a staff committee assigned as part of our workers' compensation program to identify safety hazards and make recommendations on corrective measures. In doing so, they came up with this project where the township would buy the records storage system that you see here at the bottom that is on the tracks. You see these in a lot of doctors' offices. And so what it is, it's a high-density storage system. It's open shelving, so all of the township records will be transferred to cardboard boxes and then moved into this system here. The system itself is being purchased off of state contract. And given the records that we have to store, we are buying enough to cover this shaded area, which is the back side of the basement where the aisles of cabinets currently exist, is all going to be replaced with these units, and the records will be organized and cleaned up and moved into this system. At the same time, we're also going to install to a smaller scale, the same system inside of the police evidence room, for the same reasons, to help organize the evidence room and add storage capacity in an organized fashion. So, yeah, the project itself is pricey, but the units are coming off of the state contract, and we're engaging the firm to, they're going to be the point person that actually installs the system in the basement.
Okay, before we have discussion, I need to get a motion to approve. Could I get a motion to approve Resolution 2019-68?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so first, I would just like to say, so, Mr. White, this is included, this was a project that we vetted as part of the bond issue, correct?
It is. We didn't go into the detail that I just went into here, because quite honestly, we didn't have it. We were still putting it together, but
But we did talk about the need.
Absolutely,
and-
yes.
Absolutely. So this is part of the bond. Is there any other commissioner comment? All right, any staff comment? Is there any public comment to the motion on the floor? All those in favor of Resolution 2019-68, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Booker?
Bill, with that 109, we had 200,000, so we have an excess, right? It's not going to go up to 200,000?
Well,
Or is it?
there were 3 different projects we identified with that 200,000. This was by far the biggest piece. Little letter G, the $20,000 improvements to the finance area was part of the 200,000. And then the last piece, which we're still working on putting together, is the reconfiguration of the window area at Engineering, ComDev, and Recreation.
All right, thanks.
So we're still
All
working on
right,
that.
the next one is Resolution 2019-80, awarding the Skunk Hollow Sanitary Sewer Trunk Line Replacement Contract to Mayfield Site Incorporated in the amount of $398,679.01. My question on this is,
Well, first, let's get a motion. May I get a motion to approve Resolution 2019-80, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
is this part of our recent borrowing for the sewer, or is this unscheduled? And secondly, is this in any way part of our obligations for the Willows upgrades?
The answer is yes, this is part of our sewer capital funding, and I will let the engineer address the issue as it pertains to the Willows.
So this was in the funding that we borrowed, the borrowing that we did last month?
Well, we refinanced it last month. The initial borrowing was at the end of last year, for the sewer fund, the $4.5 million.
This was covered in the $4.5 million that was refinanced last month?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Commissioner, this has nothing to do with the Willows.
Any
Okay.
other commissioner comment on this? Any staff comment? Any public comment? All right, all those in favor of Resolution 2019-80, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Booker, item K.
Item K, Resolution 2019-86, authorizing the payment of change orders 6, 7, and 8 for the Radnor Tap Trail to Simone Collins for $32,699. What were the change orders for the Tap Trail, and is this all coming out of the township funds, or is this coming from grants?
So Commissioner, I guess we could go through this 2 ways. This is going to be addressed actually in Peter Simone of Simone Collins' presentation, which is scheduled for later in the evening, or he could come up and just do the whole thing now. But basically, the township pays for this project and gets reimbursed as we go along from these various grants. But if you want to get into detail about these change orders, we could do it now or wait till Mr. Simone presents.
We'll wait till he presents.
All right, so we will table this item and take that up during item H, capital H. All right, so we will address K with capital H. Item Q, Commissioner Booker.
Item Q, Resolution 2019-92, authorizing the signing of the 5-year winter maintenance agreement with PennDOT. PennDOT, we've been having a lot of issues getting them to perform on a lot of different items that we'd like them to work on. How does that tie in with this winter maintenance agreement? And if it doesn't, why doesn't it?
That would be me, Commissioner. This is our snow plowing, the maintenance agreement for snow plowing. We do not want PennDOT doing our snow plowing. That's what this is for. They asked if we want to do it. It's a significant increase over the last 5-year contract. We're getting almost $253,000 more this time around. It's every 5 years we re-up.
Okay. Well, again, PennDOT has been one of the issues with repairs of the roads, et cetera. And wherever we can, we should leverage our agreements to ensure that we maximize their performance on areas where, I realize they're like, here, take this money and you plow. I'm sure that's a good deal, but we also have other needs for them to do repairs and other things, so let's keep the pressure up. All right, go ahead, put it through.
All right, can I get a motion to approve Resolution 2019-92, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Second. Is there any other commissioner comment? Any staff comment? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor of 2019-92, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item R, Commissioner Booker.
Resolution 2019-93, authorizing payment for emergency traffic signal repair at Lancaster Avenue and Eagle Road. Again, I'm unfamiliar with the issue and why this is on here. Can you enlighten me and the public?
Certainly, sir. We had a cabinet go down. It's the traffic control signal for that intersection. It caught fire. So we had emergency repairs made. They brought a temporary one out, and we had a new box built, and that's the cost there. We are trying to offset this with an insurance claim. We just haven't heard back yet. It's still in the process. We sent them pictures today, so we're hopeful that this is covered except for our deductible.
And how much is it for?
$25,894.
So the contactors were clicking so often that it just caught on fire.
I think the fan failed, and it was a Saturday in July, a hot one. I don't know if there was a short in it, but it caught fire and destroyed the box.
Okay, go ahead, put it through.
Can I get a motion to approve 2019-93, please?
So moved.
Any other comment? Staff comment? Any public comment? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, that gets us through the consent agenda. Public participation. Thank you all for being so patient.
Hi, good evening. Ann Minicozy, 129 Radnor Avenue, Villanova. Good evening. Thanks to Radnor Township Board of Commissioners for discussing writing a letter to the legislature of the state of Pennsylvania that our elected representatives bring pending gun legislation to a vote. I'm Ann Minicozy. I'm president of the Community Breakfast Collaborative. I have a unique perspective, I think, to share, which is why I wanted to just take a couple of minutes. As part of our year-long focus on the impact of gun violence on our community and what we can do, which culminates in the 2019 Community Breakfast, which we're having on September 18th at Villanova University. A friend of mine and I record a TV show at Radnor Studio 21, and as part of this effort, we recorded 5 interviews on our program, Have Your Say. We interviewed leaders of 5 different organizations who are working in myriad ways to end gun violence. Interviews were conducted with Heeding God's Call to End Gun Violence, Executive Director Brian Miller, and Father Joe Janito, OSA pastor at St. Thomas of Villanova Parish. The next one was Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, Philadelphia volunteer legislative lead Sarah Wallace. The third one, Radnor Residents for Gun Safety, co-president Gail Morrison, who is here this evening and is going to speak as well. NAACP Mainline Branch President Diana Robertson, who is also the co-host of the TV program. I was interviewing her that time about the NAACP's stance on gun violence, what legislation they're working on, and about their convention that they just had in Detroit. And the most recent interview was with Ceasefire Pennsylvania Executive Director Shira Goodman. So the 3 things that I wanted to share, because I'm in this unique position of being able to do those interviews and also organizing the 2019 Community Breakfast and having this year-long focus on ending gun violence, is these 3 points. 1, gun violence affects all of us. Gun violence is an issue which affects every community and each of us individually too. And these are just some of the things that I learned. Whether a family member is a victim or the shooter, all are affected, and families and friends need to have ways they can help each other to avoid gun violence whether that family member or friend is contemplating suicide by gun, or they've been convicted of domestic violence and may be a harm to others by using a gun, or whether they have plans to harm many people in our community or other communities. Family and friends need to be able to be empowered to act and to protect their loved ones. 2, gun control is tough to talk about, so let's talk about gun management. This is maybe moving on to that phrase would help us to gather around the table and dialogue more effectively. Because gun control is such a hot-button phrase, and we all have very strong feelings about this issue. So if we talk in terms of gun management, that might be useful. Many of us have family and friends who have a variety of views regarding American gun culture. Pennsylvanians in particular have many divergent views on this subject, and some people sort of unfortunately say the phrase Pennsyltucky. We have a variety of views on gun culture and use of guns in Pennsylvania. The word management is a reasonable word. It's actually more descriptive of the process. We want our government to license us as drivers, register automobiles. We want our government to manage the fish in our lakes and the wildlife in our forests. And there's a lot of examples. But if we can start to change the narrative and talk about gun management, then maybe we can legislate how we manage our guns too. The third point, my final point, a majority of Americans want gun management legislation passed. So I'm using my own words here, my own phrase. A majority of Americans I saw recently support red flag laws or ERPO, Extreme Risk Protection Order laws, so that a loved one who may harm another may have their weapons temporarily stored at the local police station. That's how that would work. Banning assault weapons will make Americans safer and make it more possible for our police officers to maintain law and order. And there are many Americans who would support a national registration of guns as well.
And you have 1 minute.
And so thank you to the Board of Commissioners for doing what you can to discuss this and encourage our state reps in the Pennsylvania House and Senate to bring up pending legislation at least for a vote. Just bring it up for a vote. Thank you.
Hello, Frank Tate, West Wayne Avenue. I am an NRA member. I am an NRA training counselor. I have taught hundreds of people how to instruct firearm safety. I have taught thousands of students firearm safety. And all the things that are being talked about in terms of laws, those laws don't deal with safety education. No one is talking about education. I was at Congresswoman Scanlon's event several weeks ago. I was at Congresswoman Dean's event last week. I was at Representative O'Meara's event 2 weeks ago. I've made repeated offers to these groups that we will come in and provide firearm safety education. We are aligned in terms of trying to save lives. We want to keep guns out of the hands of children. We want to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. And there's a third category, is keeping guns out of the hands of the clueless. And education can save lives. I represent, well, again, as a training counselor, I have secured from a foundation funding to provide 1,000 students firearm safety education at no cost. I ask anyone to step up and give us a location. We will come teach people because we want to save lives. And that's part of what the NRA is here for, training and education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Gail Morrison from 111 Poplar Avenue here in Wayne. This is Lisa Boswell from our group, Radnor Residents for Gun Safety. We have a statement to read on behalf of our group, so I'll get to that. On behalf of the roughly 130 members of Radnor Residents for Gun Safety and their families, we want to express our wholehearted support that Radnor Township send the letter that is in your packet, page 158. I hope you all have read it. We watched your discussion on August 12th that devolved as they can. So we want you to send this letter that is in your packet. I hope it's approved tonight. Send it to our elected officials in Harrisburg. The current Pennsylvania House and Senate leadership has had Extreme Risk Protection Order, or ERPO legislation on the table for more than 18 months and not acted. This legislation was proposed immediately after the tragedy in Parkland, Florida. 17 states in the District of Columbia have passed a red flag law, yet Pennsylvania has not. Even after the tragedy at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh, among many other mass shootings nationwide, our Pennsylvania legislative leaders have done very little, next to nothing. The ERPO bill had a committee vote, but nothing further was done. Our own Republican county DA urged the passage of this law in the wake of the cold-blooded murder of Stephanie Miller in March here in Radnor, inside the Sugartown Road Wawa. Nothing was done. We have urged our legislators to close the loophole in our laws allowing private sales of extremely lethal military-grade rifles in the state of Pennsylvania. They have done nothing, despite the years of pleas from the majority of Pennsylvanians. Access to weapons of war is far too easy in Pennsylvania and nationwide. As Commissioner Larkin pointed out on August 12th, townships have their hands tied to act to protect employees and residents in township-owned buildings and parks. As Commissioner Borowski pointed out, our law enforcement officers are at grave risk under our current lax gun laws, as the terror in North Philadelphia in August showed when 6 officers took bullets from an AR-15. We believe Radnor should communicate to Harrisburg that the time for action is now. Hearings will finally be held 18 months after the tragedy in Parkland on September 24th and 25th. The lineup for those hearings is more of the same. We're not particularly hopeful that anything will be done, so our voices need to be heard on this. I hope you'll sign it. The following people have read this letter and wanted their names read tonight. My husband Brian and I, Shobha Sharma, Claire South, Duncan and Marilee Johnstone, Suk Lee, Rich and Michelle Hunn, Gretchen McKenzie, Jessica Wingerter, Matt and Lauren Williams, Megan Ryan, Maura Wheeler, Gloria Pollock, Karen Cohen, Liz Duffy, Heather Klain, Sarah Wallace, Betsy Robinson, Sangeeta Pirohit, Taryn First, Susan Gans, Amy Schwartz, Jen Dawson, Eileen McMurtry, Jocelyn Gilmore, Nadine and Todd Friedman, Megan Levine, Jessica Enoch and Scott Weibel, Jody Warren, Jennifer Adams, Elaine Paul Schaefer, Linda Walters, Shilu Jaswal, Suzanne Fleming, Tex and Nancy Lamison. Nancy was here with me. She's a longtime board member of Ceasefire. She couldn't stay. And Beth Bernabeo. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Good evening.
Hi, Leslie Morgan, Ward 1. I know I've come here before, and I have 2 items really quick. I was in the Griffin getting my coffee. As you know by now, I do drink coffee. This morning, and I got a plastic straw. Rich, the purveyor of that fine establishment, and he owns, I think, 3 or 4 other locations, said, "Are you going to the meeting tonight?" And I said, "Yes, I think it's after the summer. I'm going to pop in. And I want my road repaved." We'll get to that in a second. And he said, "Could you mention that we don't really know what's going on with the Wayne business resurfacing and replanting project? So maybe I texted Chris Todd when I was sitting there. Maybe you guys could somehow reach the retailers a little better. I've heard this now twice. They didn't know what was going on, and the road closures and the beautification project that's going to be, you know, they look at it as taking down old mature trees, and they're getting little tiny trees. That's what I heard. I'm just passing that on. No comment or opinion from me. Thank you. The real reason I came tonight is something that I've been trying to do for a little bit with Jack, and I just want to remind my commissioner that Ward 11, where I live, is what we call the desert. We don't have any open space, and we don't get a lot of investment. And what investment we did get, we got it taken away. So what I've asked for is to get on the list for the Farm Windsor Banbury repaving area, because we are impacted by Wawa and flooding. The road was closed again two nights ago, Jack, so we do flood. And we are not a flood zone, but we still flood. And so if we could get on the list of repaving, because I happen to be walking my dog, Peyton Manning, down the road, and there was, the potholes were getting patched again by very fine employees, and I asked them, I go, what do you think about the conditions of Farm in Windsor? They said it's some of the worst roads we've had to do, and the patches don't work. There's over 27 potholes. I encourage you all to drive our road. Bob knows that we have a lot of potholes. Could we get on the list? Could we get on the top of the list, Jack? And maybe take back some of the money that was taken away from our area for stormwater mitigation. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Leslie. Any other?
Shoe Law, Glenwood Road in 5th Ward. I'm here to urge support for the letter to the legislature about reasonable gun safety measures. This is the 30th anniversary of the killing of 5 Southeast Asian children in Stockton, California at the Cleveland Elementary School. And I want you to think about these 5 children. A white supremacist opened fire with what was then a version of the AK-47, 100 rounds in a matter of 3 minutes. It only took, the reason why it took 3 minutes was because he had to reload his assault weapon. And the dead victims were Radnor Orr, 9 years old, Ram Chan, 8 years old, Sok Kim An, 6 years old, On Lim, 8 years old, and Tui Tran, 8 years old. He not only killed them, but he also wounded another 29 people, including a teacher in the elementary school. This is the Cleveland School, where my mother attended elementary school in Stockton, California. Stockton is about 100 miles south of, about 50 miles south of Sacramento, California. As a result of these shootings, California Senator Dianne Feinstein then began a process. It took her 5 years to get the assault weapons ban, and succeeded in 1994. Unfortunately, that weapons ban expired in 2004, and Congress did not see fit to renew it. And that's why we need action on behalf of the state legislature here in Pennsylvania. In California, they did pass the Roberti bill, which bars the sale of assault weapons to ordinary citizens. And so I urge you to, take seriously this effort to get our state legislature to get off the dime and take some action and think about these 5 children who, interestingly enough, were refugees from the killing fields of Cambodia before they came to the United States and ended up dying here in California in an elementary school yard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I spent 9 years in your seat looking this way, and now I represent the pro-gun side. I think my job's easier than yours tonight. So let me go into a quick thing. My name's Dan McMonagle. I represent Firearm Owners Against Crime. We're the largest organization in the state of Pennsylvania that only represents the state of Pennsylvania gun laws. You heard a couple different things tonight. You're going to write a letter, and what you want to write, you can write. I just want to make sure you have the facts that you need before you put the letter in the mail. The ERPO law, the red flag law, that is currently in front of the state of Pennsylvania in Harrisburg, that the Senate will talk about on the 24th and 25th of this month, it is not a due process law. It is, you are innocent, the police come to your home, they take your firearms, you then have approximately 2, 3, 4 months and $37,000 worth of bills with no charges pressed against you to get your firearms back. 30% of the ERPO laws that are pressed, Connecticut, California, Maryland. I spoke to 11 of those gentlemen whose either ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife put in an ERPO on them and had their firearms took, and the average price to get their firearms back after the judge decided 6, 8, 9 months later, with no due process, with no charges for criminality pressed, was $37,000 on an innocent, non-charged man. That's psychological charges, psychoanalyst charges, other people coming in and speaking, and lawyer fees. I think some of you are lawyers on here. I think you would know what that would cost. Due process is missing on the current ERPO law. The other thing is it's only guns they take. They only take guns. They don't go in your garage and look for rope or gasoline. They don't take your car away. They don't take knives out of your cupboard. If you have an individual who is a threat to themselves or others, let's come up with something to get that person help. Okay? It can't be your aunt or your neighbor who turns you in because they don't like something you said. There should be a doctor involved, not just a judge and the local police who don't have the training in mental health. Okay? So that's a reason for you to rethink sending a letter. I do want people who need help taken care of. I please want that on the record. Secondarily, there's a federal law, H.R. 8. It is the universal background check law. You're hearing a lot about it. What does a universal background check do? It would not have stopped the Vegas shooting. It would not have stopped Dayton, El Paso. None of the mass shootings would have been stopped. All of those people passed the same background check that universal background check. What does universal background check do for you? Can anyone tell me rhetorically? Okay, no, you can't, because the reason is it sounds good. What it does is it gets a classification of guns, which is person to person, rifles and shotguns, that I can sell to another individual in the state of Pennsylvania. You say, well, we want background checks on that. And a lot of us will say that's okay, except we don't want to have to go to a FFL, which is a federal firearm licensed individual. Why can't the federal government move to 2019 and allow me to use a computer and sell a firearm through the check?
You have 1 minute, I'm sorry.
Thank you, I'll be done by then. So again, we're in 2019, I can get a pizza delivered to my home online, billed on my credit card, but I can't transfer a firearm. This universal background check would not allow me or any of you to loan a hunting rifle or a firearm to anyone without the transfer. So again, please read the laws, understand the laws, and understand their impact to the gun community, and be fair and honest. We will help you with crafting those laws. As you heard from the young lady who's in charge of the Breakfast Club, there were no pro-gun meetings from Villanova here. There were no pro-gun people on her staff discussing. They were all anti-gun people. So again, we openly offer to her and others our assistance. Thank you very much.
Also, what about registration? That's another thing that's in here.
This is public
Oh,
comment.
well, I think this
Commissioner
gentleman
Booker,
is very knowledgeable.
Commissioner Booker,
I would move that we allow him to
I
speak.
would move that you
Oh,
stop.
so listen to what we see
Commissioner
here.
Booker,
This is what
public
a
comment,
person-
public comment,
a
not
person who
commissioner
has
comment.
information
I would
for the
remind
public,
you that this is
and you are
public
going out of your
comment.
mind because you won't let
would
anyone who has a different opinion than yours
This
speak.
gentleman just spoke for 5 minutes, Commissioner
Well,
Booker.
I asked the question.
It is public comment,
So-
not commissioner comment, as you so aptly remind me on so many occasions. So please,
So why not let him
may we
speak? So you
continue?
refuse to let him speak.
May we continue
You-
with public
if you
comment?
are engaging
Are
in
you the public or are you a commissioner?
Let people speak.
I
public
did.
comment.
The gentleman spoke for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, and you cut
as
him off
I
because you
did
disagree
not.
with him.
I did not.
You disagree.
I
That's what it
treated
is,
him
and you refuse
exactly
to hear the
same as
points.
everybody else.
You don't want to hear the points, and you don't want the
treated
public to hear the points.
Enough. Enough, Rich.
You don't agree, so
Enough.
you don't want them to be heard.
And
That's what
you
you're doing.
don't
And you're
agree
quashing
either,
public comment.
enough.
You're quashing First Amendment.
Relax.
You
relax.
You are controlling and not letting the public
Good
and
evening,
the First
sir.
Amendment
Good
be
evening,
exercised.
sir.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Gottlieb. I'm a graduate of Archbishop Carroll, also Villanova Law School. I practice law all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and in the federal courts. I will address Commissioner Booker's question. That wasn't why I was going to come up here, but I can't leave it unaddressed. The problem with registration of firearms is you're going to see massive noncompliance in the United States. There are, I believe, 300 million firearms in the United States. you're not going to be able to get people to register them. The reason is then Big Brother will become knocking at their door at some point in the future, because now there will be a national registry, national registry to say, here's where all the guns are. They're going to do what they did in Canada, they're going to do what they did in Australia, they'll do what they did in England. They will take all the guns away, so what will happen? There will be a black market for guns. I obviously am an attorney, and I represent a number of different people. I represent criminals. Most of my practice at one time was representing criminals. I represent good people, such as Mr. Tate, who's sitting in the courtroom. I also represent police officers who are involved in officer-involved shootings. I represent the good guys as well as the bad guys. I've got a kind of a different perspective. I also represent the mentally ill. And what Dan said, I believe, is that the numbers to get your firearms back is way higher in this area, because we live in a relatively affluent location, Delaware County and Montgomery County and even Chester County. The cost of the psychologist that you will need to win one of these cases is a minimum of $15,000. The cost of a psychiatrist is going to be a minimum of $20,000. That's to do the appropriate exams, and that's also going to do the to bring them in court. Now, what's my fee going to be? Well, I'm not going to divulge what I charge hourly, but I can tell you that I have traveled all over the Pennsylvania, and we haven't closed one of these cases under the Mental Health Procedures Act. It's a little bit different, for under $50,000 between the experts and the attorney's fees. Fortunately, I often will represent people who have the money, doctors, lawyers who a long time ago had a mental health issue. They were committed under the Mental Health Procedures Act, and that's what the Mental Health Procedures Act is there for. And there's really no due process there, but it's a shorter process. The problem we're going to have with the red flag laws is the government will tell you in this new, the new red flag law, that they will appoint you a lawyer after the fact, after you've had your gun seized. But what they won't do is they won't pay for that lawyer. They're not going to pay for the psychiatrist or the psychologist, all because somebody is angry with you. I got to be honest with you, I would be a target, I believe, for a red flag law. Somebody who doesn't like my big mouth, perhaps my politics. I don't know the politics of Radnor Township, but if you would get on the social media and say something that somebody would be angry about, they could go to the police department and claim that you're a danger. And if you had guns, and I don't ask people if they do or don't, they could come and take your guns with force. They could break into your house without a warrant. It just throws the due process laws in Pennsylvania completely on their ear. There was one gentleman already killed, I believe, in Maryland. The police were directed to his home because of a red flag law. He didn't know who they were. They're all in their black clothing with, it says police or SWAT on it, but, it's in the dark. They killed him because he didn't know who they were and he was resisting. So far, that's the only death I know of, but I see a lot more of that, and I'd urge you, and I have not seen the letter. I'm not a township resident, but I'm here because I was asked to be here, and I would suggest that you really take a look at these things. If you have any value for due process, don't urge the legislature to pass something that's going to violate due process. Ask them to get it right. Talk to us. We have ideas. We have ideas of how to fix that Mental Health Act that is so broken. And I don't mean just lawyers, but there's psychiatrists out there and psychologists who would happily sit down with the legislators, but they just want to turn the whole thing into a political circus. Talk to the experts. They can help. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Ms. Morrison, can you wait until, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yeah. Gail, can we let other? Yeah, this is on this.
She already spoke.
Yeah. Can we wait?
She can speak when we come.
Let's can we give others an opportunity first before? That's fine. Come on up, Jane.
If we could light that up, I'd appreciate it. Hi, I'm Jane Galley. I'm from the 7th Ward. I'm here today representing the Willows Park Preserve as a board member, and I wanted to let you and the township know that is it there? Yeah. That we are about to have a fundraiser on Saturday, September 21st, which I hope you will all be there. I know some of you already signed up. It's from 5 to 7. It will be a wonderful gathering, and we have caterers that have donated their time and their food, which is some of the nice ones is Catering by Design, Jeffrey Miller, John Shurock's Catering, and Peachtree Catering. They've all donated the food, so it's not costing anything. And Au Petit Delice is going to end our night with some sweet endings, which is exciting. And best of all, our former commissioner, John Fisher, is providing the music and entertainment. So we are grateful also to sponsors who have stepped up, which is Mainline Jaguar, Brandy Wine Realty Trust, and Bartlett Tree, who are helping us with this project. So mark your calendars and join us. You can go to our website, which is willowsparkpreserve.org, and all the details are there. And remember that what we're trying to do is create 5 good pillars that will have this beautiful building put back to the community for community uses for education, environmental studies, historical ventures, recreation, and culture, because we are open to any suggestions on what you'd like to see in the building, because it's the public building, it's our building, and that's what we volunteered to do, and we want to give it back to the community in a beautiful situation where it will be open from sunrise to sunset, 365 days a year. At least a portion of it will be, and then other gatherings that anyone would like to have. And so we would invite you all to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Is there any other public comment this evening? Mr. Larry? Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Tim Lowry from 331 South Wayne Avenue. I will be brief. I just wanted to touch base on, during the August meeting, you all spoke about flooding and stormwater management. Coincidentally, it was around the 1-year anniversary of the big 2018 flooding. Coincidentally, 2 days later, we had more flooding. So, as you all know, during that flooding, as it's happened in the past, parts of South Wayne Avenue, the fire station were overwhelmed by flooding. I think there were actually 4 vehicles that actually need to be rescued. So, my question is to my 3rd Ward Commissioner, Luke Clark. Everyone is well aware of these flooding issues that occur when we have these significant rains. So, like to know what progress you've been able to make in light of all this that occurs on and on, and what solutions you might support. As a follow-up, we're very grateful as 3rd Ward residents for your service. You've represented everybody in the 3rd Ward very well. You're very well regarded, but it's a very, very important issue to the 3rd Ward, as well as the rest of the township that floods significantly. So, honestly, we're not hearing any progress that's being made in this issue. So, that's the point of me being here tonight and bringing that up. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman?
Yes?
Madam President, I could give some information for this resident on that project if you wish.
Sure, if you have an answer.
So the project is in the budget to use the South Wayne lot for stormwater management and flood reduction. We were hoping actually to be out to bid by now. We lost several months in getting a PennDOT permit to do work on South Wayne Avenue to determine where we could route these pipes. So that has been the biggest slowdown to this entire project. And once that work has been completed, once we get the data back, we plan to move rather quickly. The system is actually designed. It's a matter of getting the stormwater to the system under the South Wayne lot.
Thank you, Mr. Nocini, for that update.
Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I'd like to speak to you and to those listening about the 2 houses on Garrett Avenue that are being built. 131 is south of the trolley tracks, and it is too tall, as you well know. There's another house being built on Garrett Avenue on the north side of the trolley tracks, number 49. they are different wards as far as zoning is concerned. The one on south of the tracks is the new ordinance, the Garrett Hill neighborhood. The design was to have the peaks of the houses be approximately the same height. Now, what you have to understand is zoning did not come in until 1968. Some of those houses, the one north of the trolley tracks, was built in 1921, the year after my house was built. They were not built as big houses. They were probably built to the number of people who lived in the houses and to the amount that they could afford to buy them. There were no mortgages in 1920. So the house on the south side of the bridge, the 131, 133, which is in violation because it's too tall, is Garrett Hill neighborhood. The one on the north side, which has elicited a lot of conversation because it looks very tall, is a different zoning district. The measurement is to the middle of the slope, and actually that house is lower than it could have been. There's nothing wrong with that house that's being built. It's also very narrow. It's more like a railroad house. And it's built to the existing foundation, which was narrower because there was no zoning. So it looks taller. It's actually could have been between 6.5 feet and 7 feet higher than it's being built. But the builder wanted to keep it within the character of the neighborhood. So I want the commissioners to understand exactly what's going on, and any neighbors who might be listening. I understand from Kevin, there have been a lot of phone calls, and I've gotten a lot of questions. How come that house is being allowed to build so tall? It's not as tall as what's allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment this evening?
Hello, Gail Morrison.
Gail already spoke. Can she speak when we take up this letter? So, we're not, we're letting people talk twice now, so, but we're not letting
I don't know.
the other person speak more than 5 minutes. This is more than 5 minutes.
Rich, I'm going to start with something I'll tell you. I just got a text from my 11-year-old saying that commissioner's very immature. So your behavior in every one of these meetings, every time I come, every time I turn on the TV, is
Is this part of your public, is this part of your public
Yeah,
comment?
that is part of my public comment, because these meetings shouldn't run like this.
Public comment, she's already
moving
spoken.
on.
She's already
Rich,
Enough.
Enough, Rich.
She's already spoken. Why
Let's
are
have
you letting people come back and speak twice?
Rich, stop it. Just stop it.
Listen,
Gail,
Lisa,
please
you
continue.
stopped
Rich,
another
you
gentleman
are
from
done.
speaking
No, I did
because
not.
they're 5 minutes, and now you're letting
Gail,
somebody
please
come
continue.
and speak twice.
Please continue, and I will give you
Point-
an
point
additional
of-
30
point of
minutes
order.
for your time because Commissioner Booker has
Point
wasted.
point of order, she can speak during when we take up the item.
I would just encourage everyone here to do their own research on the legislation at hand. First of all, write this letter. Second of all, Rich and Luke, you can talk to your Republican colleagues who are the sponsors of the red flag legislation we're talking about, okay? You've heard some falsehoods tonight, and I want you to realize that. There is due process in this law. There is a judge's order involved. You're not here to debate that law in particular, but I'd encourage you to look up firearm owners against crime, and you'll see the hateful rhetoric they encourage.
Okay, Gail, we're not going to disparage other people this evening, so please stick
But
to your
I
point.
want you to be aware of who's coming before you and what this means in Harrisburg and how we are represented. When people show up, and they are showing up on the 25th, they wear white nationalist symbols.
Okay,
They
so
show them,
this-
and that's part of this.
Okay, Gail.
And our police need
Point of order, this is absolutely outrageous. And you know what, you stopped somebody else from speaking that you disagreed with, and let somebody you agree with come up twice and make disparaging remarks about who knows what she's even
Gail.
talking about. And
I think-
insult a commissioner, elected commissioner, you insulted.
Okay,
I don't know
Rich.
why you want to do that, but I'm not going to insult you,
Rich,
Gail.
enough,
You're
enough.
not allowed to.
I'm gonna, you know, if you want to start throwing around insults.
Enough, enough.
Okay.
Gail, we heard you before. We thank you very much. You made your point. Is there any additional public comment this evening? All right, we will move on. Thank you all for all your comments. Announcements of boards and commission vacancies. Commissioner Larkin?
2 vacancies on the Citizens Audit Review and Financial Advisory Committee, 1 vacancy on the Code Appeals Board, 1 vacancy on the HARB, and 1 vacancy on the Shade Tree Commission. If you're interested in getting involved in what you no doubt relish and look forward to participating in, after watching tonight's meeting, I urge you to contact our Township Manager, Bob Zinkowski.
All right, we do not have any appointments this evening, but we would like to. So please send in your letters of interest for the committee positions we have open. All right, on to our committee reports. So item A is the motion to authorize a letter to legislators regarding.
For committee reports?
No,
No.
Sean, we are moving on.
No.
Reports of standing committees of the board are at the end.
Yeah, I know, and I have a question, or I want to make a comment about the boards and commissions.
Okay.
Just real quick. So I guess everybody knows that there was an active shooter scare at the Villanova campus on Labor Day, and I did have a conversation with Chief Flanagan.
What does this have to do with boards and commissions? This
Well,
sounds to me like new business, and we will do it in new business.
Not really new business, because I want public safety to take a look at something.
So you can bring that up in new business. That has nothing to do with
I just wanna
appointments to
just take-
boards and
Take
commissions.
20 seconds, and it would.
We will do that in
free
new
up the
business.
police, so they
That
can go
will
home.
be in new business.
Okay.
Thank you. So the motion to authorize a letter to legislators regarding action on gun bills. So there is a letter in the packet. At the last meeting, it was brought up as an opportunity for this board to collectively join together. Anyone who has read the letter will see that we are not advocating for anything specific. We are just advocating for something. So to those who suggest there should be education or there should be mental health laws or things like that, yes, all those things. I think anything that is going to help make our community safer and help keep guns, and I like the idea of gun management, out of the hands of people who should not have them. I think that we can all agree on that. I don't think I heard the gentleman who spoke this evening, who did have plenty of time to speak, Commissioner Booker, the same as everyone else, saying the same thing. So I do not want this to become a fight. Commissioner Booker, I'm going to ask you, I understand that you vehemently disagree with this. I'm going to ask that we try to make this a civil conversation and try to come to some consent, try to, reach a vote. I think we're going to give everyone an opportunity to speak one time on this and then be done. Because what I don't want this to become is a fight. It should not become a fight. Commissioner Booker, if you came here this evening to have a fight about it, I am not going to fight with you. So.
I hope you don't. That'd be great.
Commissioner Booker, if you don't mind, I would appreciate you not interrupting me.
I don't mind.
Thank you. Please don't interrupt me anymore. So I have no desire to fight with you about this. So I think the best thing to do is will give each commissioner an opportunity to speak once. I don't think we need to have a lot of rebuttal about it. It's either, do we send a letter? I actually see some typos in it that I would like to correct, but, and then we'll give the public an opportunity, staff an opportunity, public an opportunity to speak again. This will not become an argument. I think we've argued enough already this evening. I don't feel like I really need to say anything about this. I think everybody knows where I stand about this. And the only thing I would like to add is there are a couple typos that I would like to correct in this, and also to mention this, I believe it could be the same letter to go to the Senate as well as the House. There are 6 laws sitting in front of the Senate right now. As was mentioned, I believe, by one of the speakers, they are going to be taking this up at the end of September. The chair of the Senate Judiciary, Lisa Baker, has called for hearings, and that will be happening. And then there is one law sitting in front of the House, which is the red flag law, which is sponsored by Representative Stevens. So I'm going to try to control this. It's not going to become a fight. If anyone wants to fight about that, that is going to be them fighting. Okay. So first, I need to get a motion to approve the letter. So I'll put that on. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay, now we'll have discussion. Who would like to go first?
I'm certainly going to support this. Although I find it very interesting, this letter simply encourages our state representatives to do their jobs. Most of the comments we've heard tonight really are appropriate for Harrisburg, not for this meeting. We won't have any influence on what goes on up there. Also, it's this debate nationally or locally, it always seems to devolve into side arguments which have nothing to do with the matter at hand, which is simply encouraging our state reps and senators to do their job and to work for the people of Pennsylvania, not for special interest. And got my vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Nagel. Anyone else?
I'd like to say that with the exception of the courses that I was given by the Montgomery County detectives, every firearm safety course that I have taken has been put on by the NRA. There is a powerful, important function that the NRA carries out on a day-to-day basis that largely goes unrecognized in this debate. But there is also a schism within the NRA, sometimes dividing individuals against themselves into 2 respective roles, where there is, on the one hand, I think, a genuine desire for safety that Mr. Tate spoke about, and making sure that people who should not have guns, who are not trained to have guns, who do not understand how to use the tools that they are, do not get their hands on them, do not misuse them. And on the other hand, a wildly radical agenda which is propounded by the political arm of the organization. I would call on the NRA to not just advocate against, but instead to participate in the conversation. We heard some things which, frankly, I just don't agree about in terms of factual allegations that FOAC has made. Some of them are simply untrue, factually speaking, and I think a lot of people understand that to be the case. That notwithstanding, there is a real role that people who know about guns, that people who own guns, that people who know about gun safety can and should play in this debate. And if that's not a role that they want to take on, then ultimately, one way or another, the decisions are going to be made by people who don't know about guns, which is going to be extremely dangerous for a lot of different reasons. So what I heard from the people who are perhaps coincidentally sitting on stage right, House right, is that they don't like the individual bills that are out there. I guarantee you that you guys have people who work in the state legislature who you can go and talk to, and you guys can literally write from scratch a bill that would meet your needs and almost certainly be better than anything that the people who are sitting on House left have already come up with, because you guys are the experts. Go do it. I'm going to support this letter, and I hope that by the time the House and the Senate vote on something, you guys have given them something really powerful to vote on.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I just want to make an issue of a point of order. I think as commissioners, we're only going to have one time to speak, and members of this audience are going to have maybe 1, 2, if not 3 times to speak. And we're up here to vote, and I just want to make that known. So I'm actually now going to do what I do best, which is I'm going to alienate both sides. And I have concerns with the intent of ceasefire. Their goal is, I don't know if their goal is to end violence or to gun violence or to ban guns from law-abiding citizens like myself. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that should be changed, and I brought this up right after Parkland. So, in case you don't know who I am, I'm actually a Democrat and someone that has an FFL. So, they're not mutually exclusive things. I take it from both sides, the right and the left. I do consider myself to be a moderate on the issue. I look at each situation and say, hey, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. I don't sell AR-15s. In my business, I'll buy storage lockers, as you all know, and from time to time I'll find firearms inside, and I need a way to dispose them and to maintain custody of them. In the past, I have actually reached out to Ceasefire. I know that, Gail, I have actually spoken to you, and I've offered my time, very similar to what Mr. Tate has done. I've offered my time to the group, and I was told that I won't be welcome there because I am kind of a gun nut, and I'm really not. I'm kind of like a middle-of-the-road guy. And, and there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that I'm not someone, I believe in background checks. I believe that you should classify a bumper stock as an automatic weapon, and you need a tax stamp, which would basically make it impossible to buy. I believe the increased vetting of buyers by possible fingerprinting, requiring safety courses for all new buyers or transfers every 3 years, increasing an age limit to 25 for all semi-automatic rifles unless you have a military need or a law enforcement need, and you'd have a CO that would sign off on that. I don't think an 18-year-old who can't buy a scratch-off lottery ticket or drink a beer needs to go out on his 18th birthday and buy an AR-15. I believe that if you want to have a concealed carry permit, you may need to take a safety course. I think that local law enforcement agencies should hold quarterly gun safety courses as well. And they should streamline laws on a national level so it's less confusing, and then also require a license to sell ammunition and FFL. And reloading equipment, you can't go to Walmart and buy bullets from someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. So I look at this letter, and I think I get the spirit of it. I like the spirit of it, but in some areas, I think it's just too vague. I've heard Jack talk about, and I read your, was that your newsletter about not being able to carry on township property. So that gets confusing to me because you can't carry in this building. Okay, you can't carry in a park, okay, but, our streets are township property as well. You can. But you advocate against limiting concealed carry you're not, so you're for it. It is illegal, but if you were king, what would you do?
You realize we're only debating this letter, Sean.
No,
It's
no,
the
no,
law.
no, and
We can't make any laws ourselves.
Lisa, please, I understand. But we're trying to dictate, or we're trying to tell our representatives what they should do. And I think a lot of this stuff is hyped up by the media. A gun-free zone isn't going to stop anyone that wants to commit suicide by cop. It's not. It's a place where you would go because there's a target on it. So, like I said, I take a middle-of-the-road approach. I think both sides probably want to take me outside and tell me why I'm wrong. But do I support this? Yes, I support the idea of anything to make things safer. I have an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. But at the same time, it's too vague in the sense of you want background checks. Well, as an FFL, if you buy a handgun, that goes to the state police. But I have to get my license from the sheriff's office. And I run all my background checks through through PICS. It's a different system. There's more guns and people in this world. To have a national database, I don't know if it would ever happen, but I'm not necessarily against that idea. It's just a lot of buzzwords and feel-good things that I don't necessarily know that it's going to do anything. After the 2 shootings in Texas, and then we had the incident in Philadelphia, the governor came out and he had a whole big thing about how he was going to create things and streamlining this organization with that, and it just seemed that it was going to be a lot of luncheons with catered luncheons at hotels where they're going to just talk about something and not do anything. And that's not going to do it either. It's not going to get the job done either. It's just going to waste resources, which is our time. So will I support this? I'm still really kind of out on the fence, probably, but I just think that this is just, let's pat ourselves on the back and try to make ourselves feel good that we're doing something. But I don't think that this is addressing the deeper issue of mental illness and really getting the guns out of hands of people that shouldn't have them, and safety. And when you poo-poo, the NRA, and I have like Jack, I have my own opinion of the NRA, but these are the people that want to teach safety and teach people. And when you just turn your back on them when they're offering things and help to you, it's just, we're never going to find common ground, and there's got to be give on both sides, and I don't see it. So I just think this, just a letter for the sake of a letter, is just adding to a mountain of nothing. So, thank you.
First of all, as people have pointed out, this is a national issue. We are a Township Board of Commissioners. People on this board complain about the length of the meetings, how much time we spend. Why do we bring national issues which we know we have no effect on to debate and bring people out? I know why, because people want to do political grandstanding, and we saw it here tonight, where anyone who opposes the queen of the Board of Commissioners here, she won't let them speak, and anyone who supports her, they can speak twice. This is no more than political grandstanding, but we shouldn't do it. This is not our place, but since you've raised it, now we have to talk about it. This is a national issue, and this is an issue of a deprivation of fundamental right. It's constitutional rights. Whenever you advocate for a deprivation of rights, it's going to be a fight. People are going to come out and fight against that, Lisa, every single time. The misstatements, the misstatement of facts, the factual mistruths, the untruths, they're from the radical left. The haters are on the left. The people calling, what do we bring about? The white supremacists are out to, where does that come from? You encourage that statement. The Democrats on this board, Lisa and Jack, you encourage that kind of division and deprivation in our community. You ought to be ashamed. However, you're also misstating what the intent of this letter is. These gentlemen and others came out and said, know what you're advocating for. It's not just do something. I, for one, don't want the government just to do something. We're better off where the government does as little as possible, but we don't want to encourage them to do something. And this letter specifically says there's legislation that is currently pending. It is a direction to take up a currently pending piece of legislation and to act on it. That's what you're advocating. That's what you're asking me to sign off on. So, and well, I don't mean for them to do what is in the legislation. We just want them to do something. That's not what you're asking for in this letter. This letter, and you're mischaracterizing what you said to the public. This letter does advocate for specific positions, for specific issues, including the emergency what is it, emergency response? Extreme risk protection order. That obviously is fraught with another constitutional violation, the deprivation of due process. And anyone can use that against another person. We should not be asking our state legislatures to enact something that would be that egregious and that much of a deprivation of rights for all of us in the community, in the state, and in the township. The numbers given about $37,000 just to refute an unjust accusation, it's obvious that that's what it is or more. And we should not be advocating or giving anyone the license just to call the police out on their neighbor whose dog was barking or on their ex. And we as a Township Board of Commissioners should not be talking about this in any event, but to do so is an extreme miscarriage of justice. Background checks. Again, we know background checks, there is national background checks, and we know that they won't stop. Background checks don't stop every instance. It's not an issue of background checks. We have extreme background checks in many instances. A family member to family member transfer to require a national background check is more than what we need, and it doesn't go to the issue. It's designed to do one thing, and that's to chill the desire of people to own a firearm, which is their constitutional right. It has no other purpose. It is designed to put pressure on people so that they don't own or they don't transfer, and what it will do is result in extreme noncompliance, as we said. People just won't comply, and then any benefit is lost. And it shows that it's not really a desire to have a true benefit, it's a desire to chill people's request or to people seeking out to exercise their own rights. Township-free gun zones, and Jack has talked about this several times, make no sense. Gun-free zones only provide an area where someone who intends to do harm knows that no one will have a gun. That is the worst idea. That is antithetical to safety. It's a ridiculous concept. It doesn't work and will never work. Finally, this national registration issue. Again, that is designed to make a list of gun owners so that someone can publish it, someone can attack these people, someone can berate or otherwise seek to lessen them in society for exercising their right. A national registry, it's no other purpose but to use against someone in the future. Absolutely wrong, absolutely the wrong thing to do. Nobody wants anyone injured with firearms. Why is it that we continue to demonize, oh, he must want that? Nobody wants that. We have laws galore on these issues today. At Parkland, there were laws on the books that could have taken the gun away from the kid. His guns had been taken away, and they were given back to him. The schools had a policy of not enforcing their rules and not suspending kids. And then we had people who didn't answer the call to go and save the people that were there. Parkland was a failure in so many different areas, and to politicize that issue for this township local board on this national issue is reprehensible. It's reprehensible activity from Jack Larkin and Lisa Borowski that they would put this township through it and to write a meaningless letter so that we can all argue with each other so that you can get some kind of kudos in some Democrat committee meeting somewhere. Absolutely ridiculous. This is an inappropriate letter. It won't work. It's not our responsibility. It's bad policy. It's against the law. It's a deprivation of rights. And it's horrible results will come if we follow these two and what they're trying to take this township. I will vote no on this.
Any other commissioner comment?
Sure. Tough to follow that, though. I should have. That was a fair assumption. But I'll try to be brief. This is a letter, and I get Rich's point that when we bring these national issues here, they tend to delay us and create a lot of drama. But the way I see it is, as a Republican, as one who has a concealed carry permit and as a gun owner, I don't see the harm with this. I wouldn't be targeted or the subject, I don't believe, of any possible action that may be taken. I don't believe that. What I like is it says in the letter that to keep guns out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them. I think we all agree that that's the goal. I mean, can anybody disagree with that as a goal? I don't think so. How do we get there, though? People are worried about a national database. We're worried about registering our firearms, possibly having them taken away. And I understand that. At the same time, something needs to be done. So I support the letter. I think some sort of action needs to be taken. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm not a state or federal representative, so frankly, I don't need to figure that out. But there needs to be a connection with mental health and the sale of firearms. I represent plaintiffs in PFA matters as a family domestic attorney. I've represented plaintiffs in getting PFAs. If you get a PFA against somebody, that restricts them, or prohibits them from purchasing or possessing a firearm. When the PFA gets served on people, their guns get taken, generally. I've represented defendants in getting PFAs dismissed or withdrawn and then having to petition the court to get the guns back, which is not an easy venture, at least here in southeastern Pennsylvania. So I've seen it on both sides, and it is all mental health, it really is. And how do you link those two? I don't know. I don't know. But I think that we need to keep that going and keep looking into it, and there needs to be follow-up by law enforcement, which is just a function of government in, like, Parkland, right? That boy was all over the radar and yet still had them. How that happens, I don't know. But, I think the NRA does advocate safety for firearms. I do think they look out for gun owners, and I think sometimes they are demonized unfairly, other times maybe not. But at the end of the day, as someone who has some experience with this, and as a gun owner myself, I like the letter. I think it supports the main initiative here, which is keeping these things out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them. So I'm going to vote yes on it, and I do think it's a good step for us to take, and it's something. Hopefully it's more noise that the representatives and senators see and hear, and maybe it pushes them towards something.
Okay, so every commissioner's had an opportunity to speak. Is there anything that staff would like to comment on? And I will call for public comment, but if you have something different to say than what you've already said, I want to thank everyone who's come out, who has stated their position, but I don't want to belabor this anymore. We do have other business to get to. So if you have something different or new to say, please feel free. If not, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote.
Frank Tate again. To me, that we're a township. We should be focused on township issues. This is a state-level issue. There's state preemption for firearm laws for a reason. The last time I was here was dealing with a preemption issue. To me, I think we had said it's all about saving lives. Doing something to feel good about doing something without understanding the unintended consequences is a miscarriage. And I encourage you to have a thoughtful answer to doing something that is meaningful as opposed to just doing something to do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate.
Hi, Lisa Boswell. I keep hearing this statement that this is not a local issue, that this is a state and national issue. And you are right in that regard. But the reason why this cannot be a local issue is because the NRA passed a law in the state, a state preemption law, as Mr. Tate just said. The problem with that is while Harrisburg currently has all the power to legislate guns in PA, they are not doing anything with that power. They have passed one gun safety law in 10 years in Harrisburg. So if they are going to give themselves that power, then they should legislate. What this board is asking is for them to do that, to hold the hearings, to look at what has worked in other areas. Furthermore, as Mr. Larkin has pointed out in the past, this law has taken away from this township and every municipality in this state the ability to act as any other property owner would and say who can and cannot carry a firearm on their property. Okay, further than that, it bars us and every other municipality from passing lost or stolen laws. A lot of these guns that get stolen wind up killing police. There was a really great NPR podcast on that years ago. Everybody should check it out. So if somebody leaves a firearm in a glove compartment or leaves it unsecured somewhere and it's stolen, that's common sense to say that we should require it to be reported so that the police here can follow up and see what's going on there, and that's not used to harm them down the road. And to the subject of school shootings, 2/3 of K through 12 shooters get their guns in the home where they are unsecured or from the home of a relative. So if we want to talk about preventing school shootings, and I think this might be an area where we agree, or they're shaking their heads, we should be talking about keeping guns out of the hands of children, right? This township cannot do that. We cannot say, very basic step, if you own a firearm, you should keep it out of the hands of children. They don't have the authority to do that. And this is what that letter is asking, is that if Harrisburg is going to take that authority from municipalities, and some are impacted much more than we are, like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and other areas, that they should do something about it. And I thank this board for taking up this issue. And lastly, to Mr. Booker, you keep saying about the deprivation of rights. I have many friends whose children were deprived of the rights to life. And let's not lose sight of that.
Any other public comment this evening? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the letter as, with a couple typos fixed, and sending that off to the state legislator, the House, the Pennsylvania House and the Senate, please indicate by saying aye.
Lisa, before we vote, if it has to go exactly as it is, you can't correct it. So if you have typos, you better put them out.
It can be correct.
No, it can't. I had a report that we could not change one comma, we couldn't change anything. What was approved was all that could be done.
Rich.
Can't change it.
When you adopt an ordinance, your code says, an ordinance.
This is not an ordinance. This is a letter from this board.
I'm giving you an analogy.
It's not an analogy. It's not an analogy. If you want corrections, put the corrections in.
Rich,
Put the corrections in. If you want corrections, put them in.
Okay, so third paragraph, last sentence, it says, however, it says your and your help. I think it should be, however, we need your help. So can we change that you are to need? And there was one other, I believe that Representative Turzai's name is misspelled. That will be corrected in the letter that is sent. And other than that, that is the only typos that I saw. Okay. Is it all right for me to call the vote now?
How's this going to be signed? What's this going to say at the bottom?
Well,
It says Township.
it will
What,
be the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners.
it just says respectfully.
Well, I did not put all the names there. So if you don't want your name on it, fine.
I'm asking, what are you going to put on there? Respectfully,
I was
Lisa
gonna
Borowski?
put- No. I was-
Respectfully, Radnor Township?
As we do any letter that comes from the
They're all
Board of
different.
Commissioners.
You got to put it on there if you got to say.
So as we do any letter that comes from the Board of Commissioners, each commissioner's name is listed on it.
So this is going out with my name on the top and the letterhead?
Your name is on the letterhead. Yes, it is.
I absolutely refuse to have my name on this letter.
All right, so then
You'll
your
have to
name-
change, you'll have to change the letterhead to send this out.
So then you're not a commissioner anymore, is that what you're saying?
No, I refuse to have my name on this letter. So, and don't sign.
Okay.
You know, here's the thing, when you put these things out, you should also say how it's going to be signed. That's not on here.
Well, then we will not put your name on. So we will put the names of the commissioners that are voting this evening for the letter. Okay? All right. I would like to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of the letter, please indicate by saying aye. And your names will all be on the letter. Aye. All those opposed? Sean, how did you vote? I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Motion passes 5-1. Thank you all very much. Thank you, everyone who came out from the community. All right, item B, adoption of the 2020 budget calendar. Mr. White.
You know, Lisa, I had a report that I brought to this board, we
Which we are
voted
on-
on,
we are
which you
on
refused to
item
let be
B.
changed one little bit.
We are on to item B.
No,
Thank
no,
you,
so
Rich.
this is, you refused to have a change, and yet you put up a blank, you put up a blank,
I don't know what he's talking
you
about.
put up a blank
Mr.
page, and then you say, oh, we're going to put it on letterhead.
Mr. White, please.
Thank you.
Before we go into that, I will be submitting a letter with this to go in the same envelope, okay?
Mr. White,
absolutely
onto
have
the
the
Hey, Ian,
2020
while we
budget.
finish this discussion, can you put my computer up? All right, a draft version of the budget calendar was included in the packets. I have it up on the screen here. As we do annually, and it's best practice for budgeting purposes, is to adopt a calendar that lays out the future dates and the meetings that'll take place from now until the ultimate budget adoption, which would be scheduled for December 9th. Most of what you'll see in September is administrative functions. We've already started, departments have already started to prepare their 2020 budget revenue and expense projections. We have some requirements, some state requirements on the 23rd to adopt an initial MMO for the following year. That's due by the end of September, so we'll have that on the next agenda. But more importantly, what we're scheduling out here is that the first meeting in October will include, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. September 16th. Something else that's unique to this year is we have a special meeting scheduled for next Monday night. And what we'll be doing there is we'll be recapping all of the topics that we've discussed at the various special meetings throughout this year, which is good timing, as it'll help set the table with regard to how the budget is going to come together and what you'll see then presented by the administration at the October 7th meeting. So at that point, typically what we do moving forward is the board decides on any special meetings to review the budget, or if you would like to just use your regularly scheduled meetings, although we tend to run into some time restrictions during regularly scheduled meetings. What we've proposed on the draft for your consideration is we already have two special meetings scheduled, one in October and one in November. I've highlighted them up here on the screen. At the October meeting, I think we're planning on having a special meeting to discuss specifically township facilities. And then at the November special meeting, we're planning on discussing emergency communications. Perhaps given everything that we've already covered this year and the magnitude of those issues, it might be better to hold those meetings and just review specific areas of the budget, so that we have 2 nights that would be dedicated specifically and only to the budget and the various, and whatever it is the board wants to address at those meetings. And then in between, we also have regularly scheduled meetings. So what we're looking for, the board's direction on tonight is decision on October 28th and November 18th, and any other meeting nights that you would want to identify to add to the calendar that you're aware of now. Now, this will be a vote by motion, so it can always be amended as we go through the process if something comes up. But at least this we can publish to the public and put out so that the township and the public is aware of how the budget will be communicated between now and adoption.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. May I get a motion to adopt the 2020 budget calendar?
So moved.
Okay, is there any discussion about the budget calendar as presented by Mr. White? Any concerns?
I'd just like to reiterate, I know I say this every time we talk about anything having to do with the budget, but please, please do not come to us with a budget that says that we're going to fire all the public works employees and police officers, but it's going to be no increase in taxes. I shouldn't joke about people's jobs. You guys haven't proposed that in the past, but you've made some pretty zany suggestions about where we could save money in order to get to a no tax increase budget. And we're all aware that the cost of recycling has gone up a lot. We're all aware that the cost of labor goes up over time. It doesn't generally go down. We're all aware that the cost of everything goes up over time, and I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of different proposed budgets where we can have sort of the grande, vente, and tall versions of Radnor government, but I really don't want to get the anchor set, to borrow a Richism that I really like, on a budget with no tax increase, but then we have to find a way in order to pay for our OPEB benefits or something.
I really want to see you continue to have a zero increase. Neither Jack nor I can direct you how to present that, but it only makes perfect sense. Actually, Jack's out of order saying that you don't do that. Continue to present the zero increase and give us that option. That's the way it's been done, and it's completely appropriate, and it's to the benefit of the taxpayer. So absolutely disagree with tax and spend Democrat Jack Larkin.
That can be the free water cup that you can get at Starbucks. The free water cup, the tall, the grande, and the venti. Definitely need a straw.
Actually, Bob, I've been telling you for 10 years that I want to see a budget that accurately represents what it costs to run the township and accomplish our goals. And if it's not zero, I couldn't care less. That's up to this board to tell you what things to remove if they want to get back to zero.
I think Commissioner Nagel won't be on the board for the next budget.
But I will vote for this budget, Rich.
All right, gentlemen.
I think that, you can't live in an age where we have zero inflation. There's inflation, it should be accurately accounted for. And when you look at projects, we have bonds, so there are different pockets of how you finagle the money, but in the spirit of what Jack did say, I think having 3 or 4 different options makes sense, and then you can kind of take 1 or 2 of the best options and then see how you could perfect it or refine it even more. So that would be my suggestion.
Do you have any suggestions, Rick?
That we stop giving them more work to do.
All right. So even though those comments weren't directly regarding the adoption of the 2020 budget calendar, does anyone else have anything regarding the calendar? Any staff comment regarding the calendar? Any public comment regarding the 2020 budget calendar? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of adopting the 2020 budget calendar as presented by staff, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Abel absent. On to item D. We are pulling C, the discussion of the proposed Willows Park Preserve amended bylaw. Item D, stormwater management waiver request, Radnor Trail ramp access at the Radnor Crossing Apartments. Mr. Norsini?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Paul O'Connor, a principal of the Radnor Crossing Apartments, is here tonight. In a nutshell, the Radnor Crossing Apartments wishes to put an ADA-compliant ramp up to the Radnor Trail. The ability to do so would be not just for the apartment folks, but would also be something that residents of Radnor Township could use. There would be signage in the parking lot making them aware that this ramp is available for use. So in essence, we would get another trailhead. Mr. O'Connor is here before you tonight to request a waiver from the Stormwater Management Ordinance. Just to put this into context, the stormwater requirement for this being at 660 square feet would not be full stormwater management. It is an infiltration pit. And I will let Mr. O'Connor speak to the board.
Steve, can you repeat that? What did you say, 600 square feet infiltration pit? Can you go through the whole thing?
The new impervious is 660 square feet, so that falls within our category of 500 to 1,500 square feet. That category does not require the various items of what we call full-blown stormwater management. This would require basically a seepage pit, sized to take 1 inch of rain off the new impervious.
Hi.
Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. So the property is actually called the Radnor Preserve, not Radnor Crossing. It's back here at the
Sorry about that.
the end of the street. And there's a section of property between where we own and where the Radnor Trail is. It's owned by a gentleman named Joseph Seslars, who's given us, who's going to grant us an access easement as we took a number of trees down when we purchased the property that were a significant liability. So I'm actually on the board of the Radnor Run as well. And one of the things that we were hoping to do in building an ADA ramp here is not only would it benefit the citizens and residents of Radnor year-round, but we would actually move a portion of the Radnor Run to the Radnor Trail. It would be like a family fun run, 3-mile run. So we think it would increase participation and it would make it more of a family event versus the regular 5-mile run, which is more for serious runners. So, you know, this is something that we're willing to take on. We already have the easement. We just have to finalize it if we are going to do this walkway. So the walkway is expensive, and we're trying to get some sort of relief from the township and from the board to mitigate that cost. And if we do have to install some sort of stormwater management system, we're probably unlikely to move forward with this project, which would be beneficial to, you know, the residents at large here. But again, this is a cost that we're incurring just to improve the livelihood of our residents at our property, the residents of the township, and perhaps create a little more excitement for the Radnor Run, which raises money, if you're not aware, for the American Lung Association.
And if you haven't seen the apartments yet, they've really done a great job with them. So I think that creating this, it's always been kind of a dirt path back there, which isn't the safest thing. And in inclement weather or wet weather, it's not good, for lack of a better term. So this will increase it. This will increase the safety and the access there, especially for the residents.
And I'd like to personally thank you for doing this. This has always been a hole in the trail that we couldn't get people to the township building. So this will be an immense improvement. It also means kids can get to Unkeefer and, not Unkeefer, Enki. Long way to Unkeefer. Kids can get there, they can literally get on the trail and never have to be on a township street and get safely to the ballpark. So thank you very much.
Before we continue, can I just get a motion to approve the waiver? We would need a motion.
Second.
Okay. Is there any other, well, I just have a quick question. So for this, so the ramp is, I'm looking at it, so it's behind the apartments. So can anyone park back there in order to access it? they park at the township building?
Yeah, so we've been in talks with the township about this, and we're not sure what parking's going to be like at our property. We did increase the parking capacity there quite significantly, and actually have put stormwater management on our property, so we know that it doesn't perk well, this area in general. But we've talked to the township about also having signage in their municipal parking lot saying, you know, people can park here and then walk around to the back of the apartment complex to gain access to the trail.
Okay, great, thank you.
Who would be responsible for snow removal? You, because it's on your property?
We don't do snow
Yeah, this-
removal on the trail. It's a
Okay.
park.
It's a park.
Yeah, it's
so no
closed when
one-
it's inclement.
We do and plan to do snow removal on the trail at the school district, at the high school. So in this case, you want a waiver not because you've done perk testing and determined that it won't perk, you just don't want to spend the money because you were doing this for the township.
Well, we've done perk testing on our property, probably within 100 feet of where we ultimately would have to do perk testing here. We know it doesn't perk well. We don't want to be incurring the cost of a stormwater management system if we're doing something for the greater benefit of the community.
So the answer is no, you haven't done perk testing, and yes, you don't want to spend the money to do what would be required by code because this is and I guess you're saying that this is to the benefit of the township, so you shouldn't be required to comply with the stormwater ordinance.
That's why I'm here. I'm asking for that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty, and let's just be clear where we're coming from. So, I actually am sympathetic. I understand. I understand what you're saying. Honestly, I do. And this is one of hundreds of waiver requests that we've gotten. And this is, stormwater, as you know, is an issue. We have received hundreds of communications about flooding. Every time we allow a developer, which you are in this case, to not infiltrate, it simply adds to the stormwater burden. The issue with stormwater, the only way to reduce it is to keep it on site. And this, for one thing, you haven't even done a test to say, hey, it won't stay on site. It won't perk. I mean, so I really, again, I appreciate your honesty and just how boldly you're just saying, well, we don't want to spend the money. And I think all developers feel the same way you do. Nobody wants to spend the money to conform with our stormwater ordinance. Obviously, because of the hundreds of waivers we've given for people who say they can't or they don't want to, like yourself, this board obviously does not want to enforce the stormwater ordinance. I'm elected to enforce the laws of the township. So I'm not going to vote to grant your waiver, but I appreciate your honesty and the bold stance you're taking and the request. And so what I'm asking for formally right now, so Jen, if you had put this in the minutes, for our next meeting, what's the section? It was 250 that requires the infiltration, Steve?
I'd have to look up the specifics, Commissioner.
It's section 250. So let's put on the agenda for next meeting the removal of the infiltration requirement under section 250 of the stormwater management so that everybody in the township can avail themselves of the benefit. If we're going to allow certain people to not infiltrate and to not adhere to the stormwater ordinance, we should allow it for everyone. And we shouldn't make some people spend tens of thousands of dollars conforming with the stormwater while we let other people not do that. So I agree with the gentleman here. Let's not make anybody do it, but for right now, it's on the books, so I can't grant your waiver. And I think that granting the waiver is detrimental to our stormwater and flooding problems in Wayne. Although, albeit infinitesimal in your instance, it still makes things worse. And when we grant hundreds of them, we're making it much worse with hundreds of waivers that we've granted. So I always vote no on these, you probably know, so thank you.
So anyway, the runoff from here is actually going to come down onto your parking lot.
No, it's going to stay on Joseph Sedlar's property. So
it's not going anywhere?
No, in between the parking lot and the trail, There's nothing there other than woods.
There's woods, yeah, I've taken that.
And we're building a boardwalk, so
Oh,
while
okay.
it's impervious,
It's impervious under our definitions.
yes, you could argue that in fact it's not, except for the concrete slab, which would be where the ADA ramp starts.
Right. And it's over by 150 feet, Steve?
So it's 660 square feet of impervious.
160.
Yeah, so the infiltration pit, if it were to go in, would be very, very small.
Nothing like I had to build.
No, sir.
So, John, you're advocating that we don't require people to conform with the stormwater
Okay,
ordinance.
I
Is
don't
that what
thi-
you're saying?
I think we've
the
had
only
enough.
person
I
that
think
ever
Why are you getting
we've
so
had
mad? Why are you
enough
getting so mad?
combative
Why are you?
You're the
Because
only
I'm
one.
calling you out
Gentlemen.
on your
Rich. enough.
very flawed
Rich,
logic.
Rich, you've been so combative this evening. It's really enough. So
Lisa,
I will
I
support
haven't been
this.
combative. I'm
You-
making a point
And
that I've been elected to
misogynistic,
make.
I might add.
And I'm trying to educate all of you on this issue.
Thank you.
The way,
We-
the way, so
we
what,
so
what this
appreciate it.
gentleman
We
is
are going to
making the
move
point,
on. We are
I
gonna
shouldn't
move
have to
on.
conform with the
We are going
stormwater.
to
It costs
move
too
on.
much money.
So
Let's give that
I'd like
benefit to everyone.
Thank you very much for
We
being
really
here
should give
this
it to everyone.
evening. And I will support this because I think it's important to have access for our, I think ADA access is we should absolutely be supporting that as a township and making sure that our trails and the things that we have made and created and that everyone is paid for is accessible to everybody who lives here. So I will be supporting this evening. And with that, is there any other comment, from the commissioners? Is there any staff comment on this? Is there any public comment to the motion on the floor to approve this waiver? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the stormwater management waiver request for the Radnor Trail ramp access at the Radnor Preserve Apartments, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes 4-1 with
Thank you.
Commissioner Larkin off the dais and Commissioner Abel absent. We'll move
Madam
on.
President,
Thank you very much, sir.
if I may, just to add to Commissioner Clark's comment about the gentleman, they've done a 180 on that project and the property back there, and really has made that an asset to this community, and just want to thank him for all those efforts and hard work to make that something very, very nice.
Just one comment. Lisa, your point was the ADA compliance is more important than the stormwater. So I just want people to understand the priority. And again, if we don't want to enforce the stormwater, I'm 100% behind that. Let's give that benefit to everyone. We really should.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So let's have that on the agenda.
Okay,
Jen,
thank you.
for next meeting to remove that infiltration requirement for everyone, so everyone gets that benefit.
On to Resolution 2019-55, authorization of the purchase of body cameras for Radnor Police Department. Superintendent Flanagan, Lieutenant Dietrich,
Move the introduction.
Joe, what's that?
Move the introduction.
Oh,
Second.
okay. All right. All right, thank you, John. Okay. Which one of you gentlemen are taking this for us?
Thank you, Madam President. This is Phase 2 of our mobile vision project, which, as you are aware, and Commissioners supported putting MVRs or video recording in the vehicles. This is Phase 2, which would have officers be able to have body cameras. We're asking to purchase 48 body cameras. 45 WatchGuard body cameras, which sync with our current system. So when the lights are turned on in the car, the body camera actually will turn on. They will be able to be downloaded through a very seamless process, and I think it really helps in transparency and policing, so we would ask you to support this.
Okay, great. And then we had the grant this evening from the state as well.
Sergeant Chris Gluck took upon working on this grant under the assistance of the Finance Department, and with the grant check that came in, the net cost to Radnor Township with the purchase would be $41,510.91.
Chris, this just goes right in with the current equipment. We don't need to buy any new video recorders or storage equipment?
It was a major undertaking with the IT department. We were able to have everything synced together. It all is registered to each officer so we can track what they're doing for quality control if something comes up. So it really is a seamless and integrated system, Commissioner.
Again, how long is the data stored for?
The general data will be 30. If it's a particular arrest or some type of special incident, we can keep it forever.
What's the record retention guidelines? What's the policy that we're going to implement in conjunction with this purchase? You said it's 30 days?
It's 30 to 90 days, but we actually are governed under Act 22, not the right to know law for that.
Well, right to know, I guess, can be within several years. So how would we get it if it's 2 years later, we want to pull up an incident?
We would follow the Act 22, which is 30 to 90 days, unless it is of value, then we can retain it as long as necessary.
How do we make that call? What's of value?
When the videos are downloaded, they are tagged. So if it's an arrest or it's anything, a lot of them are like miscellaneous. That would be the officer testing the video, or there'd be behind a car that was disabled or something of that nature. So the tagging is very important. We go through in the morning and we make sure the tags are correct. So the tagging indicates or dictates the level of retention that's going to be put onto that particular video or group of videos, because they can be all put together in a case as well.
Will we have a chance to review or approve that, or is that just something that the police will decide on without any input from the Board of Commissioners? I don't know what the answer is. I just want to know if that's something you're going to choose or if that's something that's going to come to us later. Right now, we're just talking about the cameras. Record retention that goes with this, I think, is an issue we should be aware of. So I would like to see that tag list and the record retention, unless you're saying that we don't get to see that and we won't get to see it. If that's the case, just let me know.
What we've been doing is working with Mr. Rice and actually Mr. Rudolph. We're on the third draft. Some of the final components are before Mr. Rice's office now. It's a 13-page document. It's totally available to be reviewed at any time. And we're just in that final phase. We did want to get them ordered. Just to get that process, just every time we have more transparency, the better off it is. So we're trying to get it ordered, but once the final document, I'll get it to Mr. Zinkowski right away. All of our policies now go through Mr. Rice's office, just as a matter to make sure nothing's been missed, and they're totally compliant, to your point, Commissioner Booker.
Well, I'm sure they're compliant. What I'm trying to get to is what is the policy that we will choose on the retention of these records and the rationale for that policy. So, and I'm asking, will the Board of Commissioners have any input, or will we review it? Or is it just John Rice and the police that decide what it's going to be, and Joe Rudolph?
Commissioner Booker, what it is the police are currently working on this now, the policy. As soon as it's complete and they incorporate this, we will make it available to the board and to the public for your review.
I'm not looking one way or the other. I'm not saying it has, I'm asking, will it be made or won't it? I don't know what the answer is on that.
It will be made available.
I think you just got the answer. Any other questions?
So, but the answer is we won't have any input in that, though. So it'll be given to us for review and changes, or just to make it known to us?
Review and input.
Okay.
Any other questions to the motion on the floor? All right, any staff comment? Any public comment to Resolution 2019-55? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-55, authorizing the purchase of body cameras for Radnor Police Department, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Abel absent. Ordinance 2019-09, introduction, amending the code of the Township of Radnor, Chapter 270, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 270-16, stop intersections concerning the intersections of Sawmill Road and Earls Lane. May I get a motion to introduce?
So moved.
May I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Is this going to be Officer Pinto? Superintendent Flanagan?
Just the intention, after hearing some concerns from different citizens in the area of the park, was to get a three-way stop sign. It's I'll call it a T intersection, even though it's not a 90-degree turn, but everybody's familiar down there. So we would like to control the flow of traffic. As you know, there's a lot of different opinions from sort of the width of the bridge, the downward approach into the intersection. We have several pedestrians crossing. If you notice, there's a wood gate there. All of these factors would give more sight distance and other things. So we are requesting the commissioners add these stop signs to give us three-way control at that intersection.
So is it a stop sign, so for people coming down Earls Lane, because currently there's no stop there, they just can continue right around to the bridge, so there's a stop sign there for people coming down Earls Lane, and is there one for people coming over the bridge as well?
Yes,
there?
we want to be able to stop. So the biggest issue is pedestrians coming across. It's not for speed control, it is for that access from the trail. The trail continues to see volume of pedestrians because of its natural beauty, so we want to get ahead of that.
Because the people parking on the Sawmill side and then walking across into Skunk Hollow. Correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay. All right, is there any commissioner comment to the motion on the floor?
Well, are the warrants met for the stop sign to be there? What did the traffic study say?
Yes, the warrants are met. I don't have Amy Kaminsky's report. This actually came up, Commissioner, in the July 2019 minutes. Just due to a scheduling issue, we waited till this meeting to put this forward. I can try and go downstairs and get the file if you want.
Well, I've had this issue before where people have requested a stop sign at Pine Tree and Cricket, for example, and because of pedestrians, and absolutely would not be put in. The traffic engineer refused to certify the warrants and recommended that the Board of Commissioners not install if the warrants weren't met because of a whole cacophony of reasons. What's the difference here between Cricket and Pine Tree where we're not able to get a requested stop sign put in?
I can't speak to Cricket and Pine Tree. I know there was a lot of time spent on that. As you know, we were out there from bushes to speed to curves to railings, guide rails, but we had studied this. Our engineer, our traffic engineer, Amy Kaminsky, had put together a comprehensive study for that area of Cricket. I can't compare the two right now. I can get that done for you if you want.
Well, I think we should have that. We should be consistent, right? We shouldn't, well, if our rule is that we don't put in stop signs that don't meet the warrants, and that the traffic engineer does not recommend it, we shouldn't break that if that's not the case here. So we should be very sure that the warrants are met before putting this in, or is this just a request of one of the commissioners, hey, let's put a stop sign there? And we're just going ahead and putting it in?
No, we had received 3 complaints from residents, drivers from that area, and it was put on the July staff traffic minutes.
But again, I gave dozens of complaints about needing a stop sign at Pine Tree and Cricket, and none of those were ever adhered to. I think we need to have the warrants and make sure that it's met, and I think that should be part of this, because it appears that from what you said is that this is for pedestrians, and I want to make sure that that's correct.
Well, if the warrants
Commissioner, if I may jump in.
were the warrants done, Steve?
So Gilmore Associates did a study some time ago, noting that the warrants were met for this stop sign. And as part of that, we have a crosswalk that is very close to the bridge. We would like to move that crosswalk down to where it should be, which is at that intersection. So this ordinance will go towards helping us with 2 things: addressing the warrants that were met, and in short order, installing a crosswalk. So it does meet the requirements. That has been vetted long ago by the Gilmore report. We hope Gilmore is working on the crosswalk portion of this as we speak. So we would hope to get this all done, and it will be a great increase of pedestrian safety on Sawmill Road, if you're familiar with the road and where the crosswalk is currently.
I'm not, actually, why not put it all together in one package? Stop sign, crosswalk, warrants, that's where we want to do recommendations from the traffic committee, complaints, and then have it all buttoned up nice and neat.
So once the stop sign is able to be installed, the crosswalk will follow shortly behind it. So it's a concurrent process. It doesn't have to be a linear process.
Well, that's what I'm asking for, is it to be concurrent?
Well, it is.
All at once.
No, that different stages of the project are moving forward at different time.
Do we have a drawing anywhere? I don't see it in the packet.
You don't have a drawing of the stop sign, but you will have a drawing of the crosswalk at one point.
So this is introduction, and you can have that information for us on the next meeting for the final vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to abstain until we get all the data.
All right.
Not comfortable with it right now.
Well, I know the residents over there, and not even the residents, it's also people who just frequent that area.
Again, I had residents and
Okay.
people who frequented the
I'm
area
not-
and
okay,
wanted a
it
stop
is
sign
my
and
turn to
couldn't
speak.
get it.
Excuse me.
This
So-
meets the warrant.
So I'm
Excuse
just
me.
making that clear to you in case you didn't hear that the first time.
I heard you the first
All right,
four
so I
times
just want to
you
make
said
sure
it.
you heard it because I had the
absolutely
same
heard you.
situation.
Oh, no, I heard you.
Which we didn't get a stop
I
sign.
heard you multiple
Okay, good.
times.
Well, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you very
Good.
much.
I'm glad you heard
Thank you
that.
for your mansplaining. I certainly appreciate it.
I'm not mansplaining.
Oh,
I'm
yes, you are.
explaining to you what happened, in case you were unaware.
No, I am not unaware. I can hear what you're saying. Thank you very much. I've heard you all night long.
Very good. I hope you continue to.
So-
And I'll make sure you
Probably
do.
will after the meeting's over.
I'm sure
It'll still
so.
be in
I'm
there
sure
bouncing
so.
around. Didn't we also have a few close calls over there?
Many close
Because
calls.
it really isn't clear to some folks that the one-way doesn't have to stop. And, for example, I've seen people come up across the bridge to make the left and not realizing the person coming downhill didn't have to stop. So it's a safety issue, not just pedestrian.
Again, we should just document that, so we have it. If it's a safety issue, if the warrants are met, just put it in there.
All right, is there any other commissioner, is there any other commissioner comment on this? Is there any additional staff comment? Is there any public comment to introducing ordinance 2019-09? All right, I will call the vote. All those in favor of introducing ordinance 2019-09, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And all those who are abstaining? All right, the motion passes 5-0 with Commissioner Abel absent and Commissioner Booker abstaining. On to 731-41 Harrison Road. We've got a caucus on a minor subdivision plan.
Madam President?
Mr. Norsini.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This is a minor subdivision. The Wentzes are proposing to adjust the lot lines between 731 and 741 Harrison Road, as outlined in the memo. The proposed lot line change will increase the size of 741 Harrison to 1.221 acres and decrease the size of 733 from 2.775 acres to 2.54 acres. Attached are the review letters, and we have here tonight a representative of the Wentzes to go through this plan for you. This is caucus, so no decision is required tonight. This is just to inform the board.
William Daggett with Mominy Inc., representing the Wentzes. Here's the plan with the lot line change right there. The Wentzes own 733 and 741 Harrison Road. Yep, sorry. Wentzes own 733 and 741 Harrison Road, and they will be transferring 9,622 square feet of gross area from lot 733 to lot 741. There is no improvements proposed with this plan. It is only a lot line change. They're going to be requesting 4 waivers. Waivers include contour lines being shown on the plan, large trees over 6 inches caliper, a vicinity map, and the additional right-of-way from the ultimate right-of-way. We'll be using the legal right-of-way on this plan as the rest of the lots in the neighborhood, and these lots have since being implemented, and that's the plan.
Are there any questions from the board?
How many lots?
2 lots, just 2 lots, and it's just transfer from the larger lot to the smaller lot.
What's the reasoning behind this, other than it will be in compliance, which currently it's non-compliant?
Yep, currently 741 is existing non-conforming, so it'll put that lot into conformance. And then it'll give the opportunity to, since they own both lots, the other lot can add impervious in the future if they so desire.
What are the waivers again? The vicinity map, topographic lines?
Yes, vicinity map, topographic lines, large trees over 6 inches in caliper, and then the right-of-way to be expanded to the ultimate right-of-way instead of the legal right-of-way. And it would only move the right-of-way, it's a 60-foot right-of-way instead of a 50-foot right-of-way, but there's no improvements being added, so it wouldn't change the plan in any extent.
I know that, but once again, it's in the code. Why is it that people they don't want to spend the money just to do that? How much would it cost, $5,000?
There is zero cost. It's just
How much would it cost to get the topographic lines, trees over 6 inches, the right-of-way shown, and the vicinity map?
Yeah, another couple thousand.
Yeah,
But
why
that-
not? Why do people bring this to us without, and ask for these waivers? Well, again, why do we have it? We have it in there because obviously it's helpful. And you know what? He'll use it when he goes to subdivide this and build something next time. He'll use the data, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I recommend, this is caucus, I recommend that the engineers work with their owners and say, you know what, we really should put the stuff on that's required instead of asking for waivers every time because we don't want to spend the money, and at least do the aerial so that we can see. I mean, it's not that hard to put it on the vicinity map. So that's my recommendation. I don't think you're going to have a problem, but as a point, engineers should work with and tell their developers, give them everything they want so we don't have to argue with them.
All right, sorry. I'm guessing caucus over. All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for waiting. Okay, on to presentation, Radnor Tap Trail update by Simone Collins.
Madam President, we have Peter Simone here, principal of Simone Collins Landscape Architects. He's going to look at 3 things for us. He's going to give the board an overview of the project. He's going to show the revised estimated construction costs as well as some grant work. And he will go over change orders 6, 7, and 8, which were item K of the consent agenda.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your time. I'll try to be brief. As Steve said, I'm going to go over several items. I know only Commissioner Booker and Commissioner Nagel were on the board when this project was initiated, so I just want to briefly go over the project scope. This is a trail project that consists of both on-road trails and off-road trails. And there are 3 major sections. I'm going to point to the map here on my left. The first section is from the existing Radnor Trail. Okay, sure. The first section is from the existing Radnor Trail.
But just so everyone knows, the request was to use the mouse rather than the pointer so everyone could see.
I think I'm doing that, sir.
No, I just wanted the people, because nobody could hear what.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so the existing Radnor Trail is this line here, roughly, if you follow the pointer. So the first section of the trail will connect from the existing Radnor Trail at the West Wayne Preserve. It will go through a section of the West Wayne Preserve as an off-road trail, and then go across Conestoga Road and go along Wayne Ave, up across Route 30 to North Wayne Ave, and will connect to the SEPTA train station. So that's mostly an on-road route. I should mention all this work goes through PennDOT review, excruciating PennDOT review for safety and compliance to PennDOT and national standards. So that's the first section. The second section of the trail is at the terminus of the existing Radnor Trail near Enke Park, at Enke Park. The sidewalk at Enke Park is going to be widened. The trail is going to go as an on-road trail from the end of Enke Park down Radnor Chester Road across Route 30 to the high school property. At the high school property, the trail will continue around the perimeter of the high school property as an off-road trail, and then will continue up past the existing University of Pennsylvania facility up to the intersection of King of Prussia Road and Radnor Chester Road. So that's primarily an off-road section. The third section is primarily an on-road section. It starts at the station, or excuse me, the stadium station, SEPTA station on Ithan Road, and it comes down or goes up Ithan Road as an on-road trail all the way down to Bryn Mawr Avenue. At Bryn Mawr Avenue, it crosses, goes along Bryn Mawr Avenue under the Blue Route on what's called a cycle track. That's going to be a two-way bicycle track protected by those plastic sticks you see along bicycle trails. And then it makes a left into the Cornerstone HOA property, and that will go as an off-road trail paralleling the Blue Route all the way down to Haverford Township, where it will connect into the Haverford Preserve. This project was initiated back in 2013 with a master plan, went through about a 15-month public process, a dozen public meetings, committee meetings, focus groups. So this has been in the works for several years now. The project status, and I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds here, so excuse me. Traffic review is almost finished. One design exception review by PennDOT is still pending. The ENS plan stormwater review was approved by the Township. It's under final comment from the Delaware County Conservation District. And the GP4 permit, which is a permit to put stormwater into an existing creek at Radnor High School, is under review. The categorical exclusion, which is required under the PennDOT Federal Highway Administration process, is under final review. Approval is expected very soon, any day. The utility clearance, which we have to go through, has been completed. Literally, the form just has to be signed by an executive at PennDOT. It's on his or her desk, so that should be done any day. The Township is finalizing construction inspection paperwork, and I think one of the items that I think you agreed to on your consent agenda was the reimbursement agreement with PennDOT for getting money for the trail from the PennDOT grant. The constructability submission is pending approving the traffic approval. We did get conditional right-of-way approval a few days ago. As soon as we get what's called the cover sheet for that signed, we can begin negotiations with the three entities where we need an easement. And we've been, those are the school district, the University of Pennsylvania property north of the school district, and the Cornerstone HOA. We've been trying to keep all those groups abreast, most especially the school district. We've had 7 or 8 or 9 meetings with them. They've been very generous with their time. We've gone through a lot of the detail with them. So once we have that right-of-way sheet signed off, we're going to be asking Mr. Rice to assist with those negotiations. There's a format Federal Highway Administration follows for that. So in terms of bidding, we're hoping we get all our approvals by the end of the year. Bidding would be early in 2020 with construction probably spring, summer 2020. So that's where we are with the project. There are 3 change orders that we are asking for approval on. Change order number 6 was for additional survey. That was necessary to design and engineer stormwater management systems required by the NPDS permit along Lancaster Road at the high school. It was not possible to anticipate the full extent of that survey that was needed until we got into the drainage and engineering design. Sort of like a chicken and the egg situation. We didn't know what we would need until we got into the design because we didn't know the extent of the drainage that would be required. Through that process, the team was, the reason we didn't know it because the DCD, or not the DCD, excuse me, the Conservation District guidelines were relaxed during the design. we were able to change the design to save approximately 60 trees on the high school property. So we needed additional survey for that. So that's change order number 6, and you can see the amount there on the bottom of the screen. Change order 7 was for additional engineering that was needed. We went through the engineering once, and in that process, there were some changes made by the township in terms of what would be done with the West Wayne property. You may recall you've retained Meloria Engineering to do a complete stormwater management plan for the West Wayne Preserve. That happened after we had completed engineering for that area of the trail, where the trail goes through the West Wayne Preserve. So we had to revise that. And also, as I mentioned, the Delaware Conservation District relaxed some aspects of their guidelines, and also based upon some of those changes, we determined we could save about 60 trees at the school. So because of that, we had to re-engineer that stormwater work. So that's change order number 7. And then change order 8 was additional survey. I mentioned to you we're very close to getting a right-of-way approval. And some of PennDOT's requirements are fairly onerous, and we could not anticipate those until they told us what they were. For example, on Route 30, we have to show the right-of-ways on both sides of Route 30, which is a very wide road, even though we're only putting the trail next to their right-of-way on the high school property. There was no way we could anticipate that. We had to go back, get additional survey, additional mapping information. This change order was for survey, additional mapping, et cetera, that we had to get based on PennDOT requirements. We actually got PennDOT to agree to less requirements during this process. They wanted actually more survey. The original change order was $2,245 more than the figure you see here. This is what the surveyor was able not to spend. So the total for the 3 change orders is not on your agenda. It's $30,853.25. So the surveyor was able to save $2,200 on that. Here I wanted to give you a summary of the overall costs, engineering and design costs for the project. So if you bear with me a second, I can do that. The original contract, you can see the original contract's amount. There are 4 firms involved: Simone Collins, Traffic Planning and Design, A.D. Marble, and Bursich. Total original contract was for $406,000. The first 3 change orders you see here in red were for digging test pits, an additional day of digging test pits, and soil testing. That total came out to around $16,000. We had in the original contract an allowance for $25,000 for the soil digging, the digging and the soil perk test. So we're actually about $9,000 less than we anticipated. So those first 3 change orders were already in the contract, but because we didn't know the amounts, we had to run them as change orders. The GP4 permit was something we couldn't have anticipated for getting stormwater into the creek. And then 5 was the survey at the West Wayne Preserve. You had previously approved that, and then 6, 7, and 8 were the 3 that I just went over with you. So over the course of the contract over the last 2 years, the total cost of consulting services went up to $479,000, which is approximately 11.2% increase. In terms of the overall project, our construction budget is estimated at $1,775,000 and change. The design engineering is $479,540. So the total project costs are $2,255,000. The grants to date are the TAP grant for $1 million, DCNR for $500,000, DCD for $225,000. So that adds up to $1,725,000. The total the construction inspection. This is something the township needs to retain an engineer during the construction to make sure it's completed according to PennDOT standards. Township has a consultant that they're going to be retaining. That cost is estimated at $100,000. They don't have the cost yet, so we've estimated at $100,000. So the total cost of the township after we take out the grants of $630,000. We submitted today to Delaware County. They have a brand-new grant program called the Delco Greenways Grant Program. One of the categories is for trails. I've Dropboxed a copy of the grant proposal to Mr. Norsini, so you could certainly get it from him. But we think the township has a very good chance of getting that money because this is the first year of the grant program, and I'm almost positive that Delaware County does not have another project, the scale and the scope of what you're doing here. So we've asked for $500,000, which is the most you can get under that program. So if we get nothing, your costs stay at $630,000 for the project. If we're good and a little lucky, your cost could go down to $130,000 or somewhere in between. We would encourage you to I would encourage you to encourage the county commissioners to grant you that money. I think the grant is meritorious on its own, but certainly encouraging them to grant you the money. I don't know how many grants they're going to have. They have a pretty large pot of money, so I think your chances are good, but that would certainly be helpful. You're going to have in front of you at your next meeting, my understanding, a resolution that has to go with that grant. We couldn't get it done for this meeting, so that's sort of a formality to submit that resolution from the Board of Commissioners for that grant. And the awards are scheduled to be made in October. So that's where we are. I'm happy to go back and answer any other questions. The one other thing I just mentioned is the next logical step with this, we think, is to complete sort of the hole in the donut between Radnor High School and Ithan Avenue at Villanova. Once you're able to do that, and it's a tough section for a lot of reasons, once you're able to do that, you'll have a complete on and off-road trail system that goes from the north of the township all the way down to the south of the township, which again starts to give folks more opportunities to circulate on bicycles and in some cases multi-use trails throughout the township. So that's where we are, and as I said, I can try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Peter. And
Sure.
I know you were just at the school district. I was at the last facilities meeting, and you were there presenting to them. I'm sure they were very happy to hear about the saving of 60 trees, correct?
Yeah, we are, I should mention, we are removing, according to the township ordinance, which we're following religiously at the school, we're removing 184 trees. About 70 to 80% of those trees are not in good shape. We had your township arborist look at those trees, but according to township ordinances, and we're following them, we're in replacement of those 184 trees, we're putting back 245 trees. So we're actually going to replace all those trees at the school.
That's great.
And it turns out we're saving the school district a considerable sum of money because they would have been taking down a lot of trees themselves.
Yeah, we've suggested to the school district, and again, they've been great to work with. We think they have some liabilities on their property with trees that are in bad shape. They have cracked or broken sidewalks. They have an area along Radnor Trail, Lancaster Ave, which is one of the only sections of Lancaster Ave with no pedestrian way, and they have lots of kids walking through there. There's a lot of tripping hazards. So there's going to be, I don't have the exact number, upwards of $700,000 or $800,000 spent on improvements at the school district property. So,
And in the Delco grant, did we stress that it's an intermunicipal trail because of the tie to Haverford?
well, it's technically, yeah, you can stress that. Technically, it's not intermunicipal. And I would encourage you to look at the grant application, because one of the points we make in it is the reason we think it has a good chance is the county has primary trail network that they propose.
Yep.
Those two routes, one is along in the Blue Route right-of-way, and the other one is in the SEPTA right-of-way. And another part of it flies over the Blue Route with a multi-million-dollar complex of bridges. Those are all great ideas. We think those won't be accomplished in our generation, so, in our lifetime. So we feel that this is a very good first step to get that north-south connection that the county desires. The circuit trail wants to use that too. So we think that's the emphasis that should be placed on why the county should consider granting the township that grant money.
The school district had agreed with Penn that there was going to be on Penn's property, this trail, but apparently that's not the case. Could you talk about what happened there, or what the issue is?
Sure, Commissioner. I wasn't involved directly in those discussions between the school district and the University of Pennsylvania. What I've heard secondhand was there was a discussion, and as any developer applicant will do during those discussions, somebody asks them about something, they'll say, sure, we can do it. The trail, there is going to be a trail on the new University of Pennsylvania property. If you look at the land development plans, you can see where that trail is. It's not going to be a multi-purpose trail. For a lot of reasons, it was not practical in our professional judgment of our entire team to cross King of Prussia Road at Route 30 or further up to get over to the school and then have to come back to get to the other side again. There is going to be, as you know, a new light and crosswalk at Ryder Road, and we got the Penn development team to incorporate the ramps and crosswalks to fit the trail size. They just put those in, which was a great thing. There's also going to be a crosswalk from the school side across to the SEPTA station, which is another really good thing. So, again, I wasn't involved in those discussions, but we thought having the trail on the school property was a superior solution.
So what were the practical considerations that, in your judgment, negated moving it? So you said it wasn't practical. So what were some of those considerations? Because that's where we don't have the communication. We've never talked about, well, what were the practical considerations?
Commissioner, just as an aside, all the school board members that attended our meetings in the field with Peter Simone and his team, we reviewed these with each and every one of them at the location and explained to them what Peter, and physically showed them what Peter is about to explain to you. So this was going over about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I can try to enumerate those reasons the best of my
Please,
recollection.
because it was never enumerated to my satisfaction, and I know to certain other school board members.
If you can imagine, if you recall the corner of King of Prussia Road and Route 30 from the school side, to make the trail on the Penn property, the trail, the major trail, you'd have to cross King of Prussia Road, either at the intersection or further up on the street. And then you'd go up King of Prussia Road, let's say on the school side. But then you'd only go, the Penn property doesn't go all the way up to King of Prussia Road and Radnor Chester Road, where we want to bring the trail. So you'd have to cross the road twice to get up to the north, King of Prussia and King of Prussia and Radnor Chester. Under the plan that had been proposed that we're working on, the other thing about that was the sidewalk. If we did that, the sidewalk on the school property would remain, of course. And so if I'm a cyclist, am I going to cross the road twice, or am I just going to go up the school district sidewalk? I'm going to go up the school district sidewalk, which is only going to be 5 feet instead of the 10-foot trail. So from a practical standpoint and from directing cyclists north on King of Prussia Road, it really didn't make a lot of practical sense or safety sense in terms of what we were doing. Plus, from our view, we're replacing what we think are inferior facilities based on age at the school district property with a wider trail that keeps the kids at the school, that brings them up, new trees, et cetera. So that was the major reason. It's not anything too complicated. The trail that the University of Pennsylvania is putting on their property, though, is going to serve the network in the future, because my understanding is they're bringing the trail up under the Blue Route, where that old creek is in there. So that's going to be a plus when the trail system goes further east on Route 30.
The trail that's going to be on the school district property, Steve, it wasn't the contract that Township would remove snow. Is that still the case?
That's been discussed, and when the township and the school district get to the formal, what happened was, Commissioner, when the PennDOT awarded the federal money, we had been talking to all those three parties, and according to Federal Highway Administration standards, if you don't have the easement in place, you have to stop until we have this right-of-way plan approved. So hopefully in a couple weeks, which we think it'll be, when that right-of-way plan is formally approved, the township then can enter into negotiations with both the school district, University of Pennsylvania, and Cornerstone. That has been discussed as a condition by the school board that they would like the snow removed from there, and so that will have to be discussed between the township and the school board.
Well, I think it was more than a discussion. It was in writing and signed off.
There was a preliminary, I think there's some preliminary paper passed back and forth, but again, because of the federal process, we're prohibited from agreeing to anything as of the second. In 2 weeks or so, when that paper is signed by PennDOT, then we can re-initiate those conversations. And, you know, I mean, personally, I think that's a reasonable request, but that's between the school district and the township to decide that. I'm sure it will come before you, that final agreement.
Well, it would be the first trail that we remove snow on, I think. And I think my concern is that we agreed to it, and now we're talking about reneging on that. Is that?
Commissioner, that's not what I said.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that's what you said. I'm not saying that's what you said.
Reneged on anything. All I'm saying is that negotiation has just stopped because of the federal regulations. There's been a lot of things talked about between the school district and the township. I think they're all positive, they're all good. All I'm saying is we by law, by regulation, nobody could talk about it until we get this right-of-way plan signed.
So what you're saying is that there is no commitment to remove snow on that trail?
I didn't say that.
Okay, so, but, well, what I can...
Actually, Commissioner, this is way above my pay grade. You really
I was directing it towards Steve, honestly.
Can we move on? Can we
directing
move
it towards
on?
Steve.
Can we
Well,
move on?
this is an important point, whether the township will remove snow. Now, I know for a fact, I saw the paper, the township agreed we were going to remove the snow. So, and I'm not saying one way or the other if it's good or bad, I think it's going to be difficult, but if we are not going to follow through with that, I'm asking, is that what our plan is? We're going to renege on that soft commitment in writing?
Commissioner, that's for this Board of Commissioners to decide when the negotiation starts between the school district. This board will determine if they're going to have snow removal in the winter. That's not a staff question, that's solely a board question.
But, well, why was it in there before then? Why wasn't it brought before us before you wrote it down? In other words...
I didn't write anything down,
How
Commissioner.
how am I going to go back on that now that we put that in writing?
Commissioner, I didn't put anything in writing.
Who put it in writing then?
I was not involved in that, and you will now have the opportunity in a few weeks to
Commissioner, I
have
think what you're
formal
referring to
negotiations.
is there were meeting minutes from the school facilities meeting and the school board meetings, right? And those meeting minutes recorded all the things that were discussed. So that's my recollection of all those asks that were there. And, you know, I think at the time, we just said exactly what Steve said. It's going to be a decision between the school board and the commissioners. We didn't say it was unreasonable. We didn't say it was reasonable. It was definitely, though, an ask from the school district. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so, but this is important, Lisa, because, so every time I've asked about this, we need to talk to Meloria, we need to get your Simone Collins. So now I have you, and now I'm asking what happened and what, so what I'm, now I am going to put words in your mouth. The words you're telling me is there was no commitment for us to do the snow.
We were working towards an agreement. Okay, as soon as
I understand that, but so we got to characterize it. Is there was a commitment or there wasn't a commitment? It's binary.
Can you let him finish? Let him finish.
I need to get an answer.
Well, he can't answer you if you don't
He's not answering
stop.
it. Was there a commitment or was there not a commitment?
The agreement was not finished, okay?
So there was not a commitment.
The agreement wasn't finished. It was, the school board asked at that time that snow be removed. We talked about it. I said, yeah, I think that's a reasonable request, but that's to be determined by the township. It's in the minutes of our meetings, okay? Then the good news happened. We got $1 million. And when the township got $1 million, we had to stop that negotiation. So at the last school board meeting, I believe that might have come up and some other things came up, and we said, when we get back to the negotiation, all that's going to be considered. So it's, my understanding is nobody committed to it or they didn't commit to it. It was an ask. We had to stop negotiation, and that's going to get picked up in a few weeks, I hope.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we're
No,
clear,
we're
we're clear
moving-
that
Rich,
there was
we're
no
moving on.
commitment on the
Rich.
part of the township to do that.
Rich, I think that question has been answered appropriately by multiple people.
I just,
So
for-
stop
out of
asking it. We're
abundance of
going to
clarity,
move
why
on.
do you have to yell all the time?
I'm
You're
not
very shrill.
yelling. I am not, excuse me?
Do we have a commitment? You're very shrill.
Excuse me?
Do we have a commitment or do we not have a
Okay,
commitment?
is there anyone else here? I'd like to, consensus
So-
of the
so-
board,
so,
is
Steve, you're
there
saying
anyone else that
Bob-
needs to continue on with this conversation regarding snow removal? Is there any other commissioner sitting here who feels as if they don't have an answer with regards to
I
the snow
don't have an
removal
answer.
question?
Do we not, are we not committed to do it?
Any other commissioner besides Commissioner Booker?
No, don't shut it down. So
I am
is there a
shutting it
commitment
down.
or is there not a commitment?
I am shutting it down. The
No, don't
question
shut
has
it
been
down. You can't
answered.
shut it down. There's
I
a question
can,
being
and I
asked in it.
am.
So once again,
Okay.
you're some kind of dictator at this point.
No,
Listen,
you
is there
are
a commitment?
annoying.
We have to agree with the school district. Do we have a commitment that we're going to go back
declare
on,
Rich out of
or do we
order
not
and
have a
him
commitment?
removed from the meeting.
Okay, Rich.
No,
you're-
I want staff, including Simone Collins, to say whether there is, you're saying there's no commitment.
Commissioner, the commitment would have come from this board. It wouldn't have come from us. So if there was a commitment, I'm not
No,
aware of
so you're saying
any.
no commitment?
I am not aware of
So
any
just tell me,
as
no
your
commitment.
engineer. Whether this board made a commitment,
All right.
I can't speak to.
So this evening,
This
so I
board
need a
didn't make any
motion,
commitments.
I need a
There you go.
motion to approve item K, Resolution 2019.
Second.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to approve the payment of the change orders, items 6, 7, and 8 for the Radnor Tap Trail to Simone Collins in the amount of, which I believe you said is now less than the 32,000?
$30,853.25.
$30,853.25. So it's less than what's on the agenda. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other commissioner comment with regards to Resolution 2019-86? Any other comment? Any staff comment on Resolution 2019-86? Is there any public comment to Resolution 2019-86? I will call the vote. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2019-86, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Commissioner Booker, how did you vote? Excuse me? Excuse me, I did not hear you say anything, nor did I see you raise your hand.
You asked, you said indicate by saying aye. I said aye, right here with everyone else. If you want to raise hands, you got to say raise hands. You didn't ask to raise hands. Why are you being so difficult tonight, Lisa? You're being very difficult. I'm not sure what, something's bothering you.
Thanks very much for your time. I
Okay,
appreciate
thank
it.
you, Mr. Simone, we appreciate it. The motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Abel absent. All right, moving on. We will move on to ordinance 2019-10, medical office parking, the introduction of amending Chapter 280 of the Radnor Township Code, zoning ordinance by amending regulations to provide minimum standards for off-street parking for general, processional, and medical office uses. Who's introducing this? Mr.
Well, I have a question first. The record was incomplete, the packet was incomplete because it refers to a conditional approval by the Planning Commission, and it did not include the minutes of that. So we did not have the full packet to be able to evaluate this.
Who on staff? can
Commissioners, if I
address
could add to that, there was, we were working with the solicitor's office on this, and I think we were, because the record was incomplete, we were looking at tabling this, and then there was some direction from Solicitor's Office to move forward with a certain draft, which was the most recent draft from the Planning Commission for introduction. So that's why it stayed on the agenda for introduction.
Yeah, the other issue, John, had to do with the rooftop.
John, it's hard to hear you.
The other ordinance was the rooftop dining, so that's, right. Well, okay. But just to explain what this is the breaking out the medical dental office parking.
The record wasn't complete, and anyone in the public that wanted to review the packet.
Oh, for this too, for both
Yeah,
ordinances?
for both of them.
Okay.
So, I mean,
So we've already pulled ordinance 2019-11 for that reason. Should we pull ordinance 2019-10?
Yeah, it's been hanging around for several months. It can come back and be introduced. It's been sent to the county, so we still need the county planning commission review on this, so it can come back at your next meeting.
All right, so we're not under any time constraints on
No.
this? Okay. All right.
I wouldn't, why not just approve it as an introduction?
The reason that Mr. Nagel just suggested that there wasn't sufficient information in the packet on either of these zoning amendments to take action. But it's up to the board.
What was missing from the rooftop?
Same thing.
Planning Commission minutes were missing from both of these?
That's my understanding.
What's that, Baron?
The ordinance.
The entire ordinance wasn't in the packet for the rooftop.
And we pulled that, so we're not
But
discussing.
this is minutes from the Planning Commission for the introduction, which we can have brought in for the final. And we need to get the Delaware County Planning Commission as well. So this is it's not the same thing, it's a different, absolutely completely different thing. Or if it's the same thing, then tell me. Sounds like it's different.
I move that we table this.
All right, there's a motion to table. All those in favor of tabling ordinance 2019-10 until the package can be complete, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Why,
opposed?
Luke? Why?
so we will table
So who's responsible for not having this stuff in there, John?
So we will.
Why did we mess this up for both of these?
So we will table this.
who-
All right,
you don't-
next is reports of.
Whose
standing
responsibility is it? We need accountability for
Reports
both of them.
standing
I'll do an
committees.
investigation this week, Rich.
Okay.
You gotta hold somebody accountable. If you have a job, you're paid to do it. Is it you? Is it Kevin? Is it Bob? Who is it?
Reports of standing committees.
You
of
don't
the
know.
board.
You don't know who did it? You just whiffed on both of those.
Do we have any reports on the standing committees of the board? Any new business? Commissioner Farhi, I know you have new business.
I do have new business. And Chief Flanagan, thanks for sticking around. I guess everybody knows that there's a false alarm of active shooter at Villanova's campus. And I wrote a nice, my opinion on Facebook, so anyone that wants to read that, feel free to do that. I did meet with Chief Flanagan on Thursday, and we had a discussion. Basically, he told me that the Radnor Police is separate than the Villanova Police, and our conversation then led to what should the expectations be of the community, which is not limited to the residents, the board members, staff, et cetera, when it comes to information dissemination about anything from an active shooter or a bomb scare or anything like that. I know Bob does a great job when it comes to weather-related stuff. He gets that out to us. So I just think it's a discussion to have, or it's a discussion that maybe our Public Safety Committee could look at. But I'll just, kind of toss it over to him, and if you want to share kind of what we spoke about.
So Villanova has a system where they can alert their constituents, meaning students, people affiliated with the campus for various reasons. They put out an alert on this date this past Sunday where somebody had called in a possible shots fired call at the dorm, St. Monica Hall on South Campus. So there were different people from Villanova alerted in the community from Villanova's alert. Radnor Police did respond within 2 minutes. We had determined there was no such emergency. It was an accident. The person did believe it was going to occur and did the right thing by notifying. They thought they were in some type of threat. But with the 2-minute gate time and determining there was no situation, we did not put out an alert. We did notify the Radnor commissioners via email, and we had officers on scene and our PIO who was contacted who put out some following information that day and the subsequent day as well. And the township manager, of course, was notified as normal.
I guess my question is, and I know every situation's different, but going forward, and we have we have the advantage of hindsight here because this was a false alarm. But going forward, what the fact that it was a false alarm, the notification to members of the community, they're hearing, it's a 4-alarm situation where you have Lower Marion, Radnor, Haverford, as well as Villanova all there. So I was not, at my house, so I didn't hear it all, but I guess my question is, looking forward, how do we disseminate information? Should we look at a certain protocol or any kind of process? So, I found out from a 6 ABC text hours later, and I don't necessarily know if that's if that's a good way of communication. I suggested in the past that Villanova, because I do believe that they have a sworn police force, they do have some kind of inherent obligation or responsibility to the community. They've taken government oaths, they've sworn on the Constitution to let the neighbors know, and it's the neighbors are a stakeholder. If you back up to a property, it's an issue. My son swims at the Villanova swim camp. So to say that I can't get information that's from a sworn police force, I am a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm relying on Radnor. And it's just, I just think that this is a greater conversation that we should have about how information gets disseminated, and if Radnor could do some kind of text system, hey, all clear, hey, false alarm, so we're not getting bits and pieces. Oh, my friend's kid goes to Villanova, so I got the text, but you didn't. So some people are in the dark and some people have information. That's really kind of being a little bit wordy, but that's kind of my gist. Can we look at getting some kind of text?
Madam President, if I may. I think some of the points you make, Sean, are good. A lot of this during these incidents that occur, social media we cannot control. We cannot stop people from taking pictures and assuming what's taking place. The police department and as well as staff will try to gather the accurate information and as necessary put that information out. One of the concerns are, in the one incident that occurred at the Wawa, is trying not to respond to things that are going out there. When someone says there's a shooter up on the Radnor Trail, which there isn't, we can't respond to that, but also officer safety is critical in these circumstances. So at times, people may be jumping out, putting information out. We won't put the information out until it's accurate, and in those situations, until police have control and command of a situation in which they can release the information out. Now, if there was a concern in which there was someone in a neighborhood or that would be handled completely differently. Delcom has a way in which notification can be made immediately, as well as the police department would go out and notify residents within that affected area. It's a difficult balance to say this must follow this policy exactly. It's hard. It's hard to be able to do that.
I get that. Someone's shooting at you, you're not going to be putting
The other part of it is, too, is not to be transparent, but there's things that they have to keep internally of how this is going to go, because the always concern is someone who is an active participant may follow social media that says, okay, I know Radnor Police because we're putting information out. Here's where they're at, here's where they're doing, is we don't want to be able to tip off to say, here's where our officers are at, and here's an issue with their safety of how they're trying to respond and protect the community as itself. So it's an interesting balance for this. It's just for them trying to put information out and us trying to communicate that out too, to keep you informed, but also too, there's got to be a point where there's responsible release of this information so that we don't put officers or medics or anybody else in harm's way.
Sure, and I get that. And this is not a social media situation. This is a text alert situation. So, yeah, I don't, Joe Smith puts, a picture out. Who knows if it's real? I don't want that. I want it from a police force, whether it's Villanova or Lower Merion or Radnor or Delaware County, something like that. And that's all I'm getting at is. And people may opt in, they may not opt in, but I think that, I don't know what it would cost to do something like that. It could be really.
You already have that?
Well, you have a reverse
No,
911
not
that's set
real-time
at,
text.
there's a reverse 911 set at Delcom. Now, we have the alert system, and what we try to do, and even if the commissioners as well as we are pushing out all the time, is for residents to sign up for that text email alert. You don't have to opt in for the weather, because we've heard where, again, they don't want,
Yes,
somebody doesn't want to
yeah.
get a phone call at 2 in the morning. And we agreed on the one that the National Weather Service put one out a day in advance at 2:30 in the morning, which nobody wanted to be told a day in advance there's a possibility of a flood warning. But you can opt out of those, so if you don't want the weather, but at least though you would be within the system so that we can now send out information and blast that out. That's our best way. But I know with Delcom in a reverse 911 possibility, in those circumstances, they're going to activate that in cooperation with law enforcement officials within the township in that coordination.
Sure. Is there any way to get text messages? And I don't want to advocate reading a text while driving, but, if you're driving and you see text, active shooter at Villanova, I think most people are going to say, well, gee, let's not go home, or let's avoid Lancaster Avenue. And I think that helps the officers do their job better. You're staying out of it. And, or if you had to shelter in place, you're getting an update. And like I said, we, for lack of a better term, the bullet was dodged here. No one was hurt. Nothing happened. But I think that we should, we'd be, as we talk about gun violence, we'd be remiss not to bring something like this. Is exactly a situation, and you can look at it. The response was excellent, but every situation is going to be different. Getting those text, those text alerts in real time can really, I would think, could help. Help people stay away from the scene, keep people informed, and you're not having, oh, my kid got this text from Villanova, and I'm sitting like, well, what's going on? Why are all these cars? That's all these sirens going off. That's my biggest concern, and a lot of neighbors express that as well.
Civic Ready does have that ability. We do have that ability in the system.
Okay.
We just need people to sign up.
Okay. I've never gotten a text message from Radnor.
Okay.
Well, on this particular issue, part of the justification that Villanova used for their own police force was that they were going to handle and be the primary force to deal with this type of incident. So isn't it appropriate that they would do their notification? And also, and they would take the lead in addressing the issue. That's why they needed a police force. That was the main rationale for the police force. And the other thing is, when you notified the commissioners, what do you want me to do with that? Do you want me to blast it out to the residents, or do you, that's something that my view is, I would prefer not to do a blast about possible, this was a false alarm. Imagine if we would have all sent that out, we could have had a lot of chaos from that. So I didn't even think about sending that out to people when I saw it. So what is our role in notifying us of it, just to be aware of it? And then why isn't Villanova the one responsible for these notifications?
What we try to do is provide the commissioners with information so you have an idea of what's going on. We usually had put a header on there that says this is not for public dissemination and also for officer safety. Those there is clear that you're not going to distribute that, put that out. We would give you information if we wanted to put something out. We would tell you this is for, public dissemination, that you can put this out. The Villanova situation, I think that's a different issue because of how they put things out in there. Chris, I'm not sure if you want to add to that, but you've got, I understand your concern, Rich, is you have a police entity there that they wanted, and then you've got dual police departments.
Right, and then the messages could be, the text could be different, or what? So, in this case, Villanova, that's what they wanted to do, was take control and address this right away. And we talked about whether that was a good idea or not, and people can still have different opinions on that reasonably, whether that's a good idea. However, what we came down with is they have their own police force, armed, sworn. They will address it. Why wouldn't they also take the lead in notification to the community?
Well, I can only answer for Radnor Township. The Radnor police respond to major incidents at Villanova. The MOU, if somebody was shooting or there was a victim of a shooting, again, thank goodness that was not the case. That would fall to Radnor Township Police. That particular incident, if it was, played out to what it was called in as. We had staff there, and we did not make a notification because within 2 minutes of our arrival, it was determined that there was no need to. I can't stress that enough. But we cannot control what Bryn Mawr Hospital sends out, what Villanova sends out. We handle the information based on the way we process it through our emergency systems, whether it be a communication or having police go door to door, whatever it may be, and that's how we would handle notifications there. We didn't put it out because there wasn't enough information in our mind to list that as an active shooter. There was only one caller. There was a very specified shots fired call, which is a very common call here. We're doing post-incident analysis. We're working hand in hand with Villanova. Delaware County received a printout of the call log. Well, we're finishing up, all the things that could be done better in a situation like that. So I hope that answers your question of why that went out.
I'm more confused than ever. So it seems like what needs to happen is Villanova would need to notify the township, this is what we want you to tell, and then the township would use its system to do it. Or Villanova would notify the township.
Let me just, what my opinion is. First of all, I don't blame Villanova for issuing that out. I've been pretty critical on Villanova. I don't care that it's a false alarm. I'd rather them issue a false alarm than issue nothing at all. All I'm saying, for better or worse, I wasn't on this board voted for Villanova to have a sworn police force. A sworn police force, and on their website, it says all the rights and responsibility of a municipal force. Okay, so if they have the responsibility, they have a responsibility to the people that live on Brookley and the people that live in Old Oaks, that back up to the dorms. You may shake your head no, but I certainly agree that they have an inherent responsibility and an obligation, and I believe that selectively disseminating information to those who you want to do it is irresponsible. They're a sworn police force. They're not bodyguards. They can't push you out of the way and say, oh, we're only, doing this for saving the university. If it is an all-hands-on-deck issue, which is what it was, I believe that information dissemination should be for whoever wants to sign up and opt in. We're not looking for floods in basements or, a sprinkler was set off or, a fire alarm. We're looking at bomb threats or chemical spills or building collapses. Things that we'll probably never, ever, and hopefully never, ever need to have to deal with, but there should be a resident opt-in for residents or, other people. Like I said, my wife and my son have used, my son goes to swim camp there. You have vendors that use it. So I just, again, my opinion.
Well, this board needs to then draft legislation or direction, instruction of what we want Villanova to do, either Villanova does those notifications, and we instruct them to do it and how to do it, and, or however we authorize it with ordinance or whatever it is, or regulation, or we say you notify our police and we'll do that notification.
But they're not going to be able to do it because they're all running to a scene. They're not going to stop, I mean, maybe they can, but if it's an all-hands-on-deck issue.
We need to draft some, we need to put some direction.
something should
on
be
what.
addressed.
So we need an ordinance on our regulations or our rules on
No,
other police forces within the township.
can't do it.
We can't do any, we have no control?
We have an MOU, and just so both of you are clear, the township did not vote to permit Villanova to have their own police department. Villanova formed their own police department under the corporation law, which are permitted to do. That's how it happened. It wasn't the township voting that. They formed it under a process, a statute that's in place in this state, which they had the right to do, and they did it. We then, because there were some issues with that, and how was that going to happen, and how was that going to be basically blended in, we then negotiated an MOU. So if you want to look
can
at
amend that MOU.
Read the MOU. I can send it to both of you. Read it. It spells out what the interrelationship is, who has responsibility, as Chris said, for what, and then make a proposal. But there's no ordinances to be drafted.
Like I said, I just want to get this on the record that, this is a false alarm, we have that advantage, and for us not to really dig into this and say, well, God forbid, what happens if this really happens, and we're just going to keep it as is, I don't know if that's the responsible thing when we can look at different forms of information dissemination, and that would be text, and text from Villanova. No one cares who sends the text, Villanova, Radnor, Laura Marion, they just want to see something on their phone. Oh, wow, there's a really bad situation. That's all. That was the general gist from around 30 of the neighbors that I've spoken to. That's it.
So
Thank
Bob,
you.
we do have the capabilities to do this. Maybe, is it possible for Mrs. Gallagher, our PIO officer, to put something out there so that residents, we have it, we know it's there, I know the commissioners have pushed it out. Would she be able to put something out there that tells people how they sign up for our system, how they, can opt out of the weather stuff? Sometimes it's like a step-by-step thing that's needed.
We can
would
do
be
that.
helpful. Okay, maybe that would be helpful.
John said, look at the MOU, and I have it right here, so you don't need to send it. Look at the MOU, see what it says. It may already be in there. Right? So, I have this from 2016, from June of 2016.
Okay. So it sounds like there's some research to be done on this, and that we can perhaps bring it back. Is there anything else to be said on this subject? All right, is there any other new business? Any old business? All right, then I will call for public participation. Is there anyone who'd like to speak this evening to close us out? Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the board for continuing their efforts to support legislation by our elected officials to curb gun violence in ways that they believe are appropriate. And I would also like the members of the staff to consider approaching Villanova so that those people who wish to be on their alert system might be able to tie into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Any other public comment this evening? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? Can I get a second? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Good evening. Thank you very much.